Good morning to our online viewers and live audience. Did you guys hear that our very own Vice President Mike Pence will be at the March for Life? Woo! The Family Research Council welcomes you to the 2017 ProLifeCon Digital Action Summit, our 12th annual. My name is Arina Grossu, and I am the Director of the Center for Human Dignity here at the Family Research Council. This morning, we will hear testimony from individuals, activists, policy experts, and legislators as they discuss the issues impacting the pro-life movement and share practical ways to make difference for life on blogs, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and a lot more. Our first speaker, Kristan Hawkins, is a real firebrand. She is the president of Students for Life of America. Since launching Students for Life of America's full-time operation, Kristan has more than tripled the number of campus pro-life groups in the United States, from 181 to over 1,080 in 49 states. She speaks to youth and adult pro-life organizations across the country to train pro-life activists on how to end abortion in America. She is also the author of Courageous: Students Abolishing Abortion in This Lifetime. Please help me welcome Kristan Hawkins.
Good morning. 8 years ago, I received the most incredible blessing in my life. My son Gunnar was born. He was my firstborn child, now 4. But 3 months later, we received the devastating news that Gunnar was positive for cystic fibrosis, which is a genetic disease that usually ends in death. So this is something that I was unprepared to deal with. I never heard about cystic fibrosis in my life, and so I started studying. And while I was researching what medical teams we needed to go to, what hospitals we needed to visit, how could I make sure Gunnar's life is a quality life. One of the questions I kept raising in my head was, how do I make sure that Gunnar's life is a fulfilled life? Not only is he healthy, not only does he live the longest life possible, but how does he live a fulfilled life? And what does that mean? And I remember I was talking to a priest about this, and we were going over this, and one of the things that kind of hit me in that meeting was, what does it mean to live an extraordinary life? How do you live an extraordinary life? You live an extraordinary life when you dedicate your life for others, when you dedicate your life to serve other people. Because it's not about the years you spend on this earth, it's the legacy you leave behind. It's those that you impact while you're here. And I was thinking about this as we were preparing for the March for Life. Our Students for Life America National Conference is tomorrow. There'll be 1,900 students. And our theme this year is heroic. And the question I'm going to pose to the students is, how do they live a heroic life? Because most of the students are kind of like me. We're kind of average students. They were a lot of them were growing up in middle-class households. They never really had to overcome anything extraordinary in their life. There wasn't some great obstacle right at their moment of birth. But how do they take this ordinary life, and how do they become extraordinary? And really, I think that's by living it for somebody else, by serving someone else. We were at the Women's March last Saturday here in Washington, D.C., and, ABC was following us around. People were interviewing us. At one point, we marched in front of the march and led the women's pro-abortion march with Abortion Betrays Women banners. That was a lot of fun. But I was thinking, on the plane, I was flying out to San Francisco. I had a night flight. And I was thinking about, this is a crazy life that we have as pro-life activists. This is a crazy life that we've been called to witness this truth in crowds, 1 million to 50 people, we were there. But we've dedicated our lives to living it for others, to live that extraordinary life. And this is a cause worth fighting for, because we know this is a fundamental human rights injustice that we face. We know that more than 58 million Americans have been taken from us. We know that every single day women walk into an abortion facility in our country and are lied to and are betrayed by a predatory abortion industry. So what we need, and what my challenge tomorrow to our students at our conference, is going to be that we need a new generation of heroes. And they can be those heroes, and you all can be those heroes. And it doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter if you want to join us at the Women's March or even at the March for Life, although we kind of need you here today. But you can be those heroes online. You can be those heroes everywhere you are. Using the hashtags, resharing the videos, putting up the memes or the graphics. You can be those heroes in your own personal lives. You know, I think when I was in college, I had to write a paper on, social movement activism. It was something I was studying just a little bit. And, one of the books I came back to was A Letter from Birmingham Jail. And I remember reading it in high school. But I kind of glanced over in high school. I was just kind of looking for the important, really cool quotes. But I never read the beginning of the letter. And really, what most people don't know is this letter from Birmingham Jail wasn't written to the Ku Klux Klan. It wasn't written to the racists or the bigots. It was written to the Christians. It was written to the clergy who were there in Birmingham who said, yeah, we're with you, but not now. And Martin Luther King perfectly described it, saying, it was those who preferred a negative peace, which was the absence of justice, than a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, right? Negative peace was the absence of tension. I got people back there going, you're getting this wrong. To a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. And I thought, that's so much what we see today in our churches. That's what we see in our schools of, I'm with you, I know abortion's wrong, but not now. It's not polite to talk about this at the dinner party. Let's not bring it up. And we need a new generation of heroes. So we need you out there on the front lines. We need you to decide to live your life for something else, to have that fulfilled life, and to be out there, especially on digital media. I mean, the first thing you can do, and I'm a bossy person, ask anybody who knows me. So I came with some bossy action items for you. The first thing you can do anywhere you are, on social media, at the March for Life, in your church, in your parish, is expose the darkness. Talking about Planned Parenthood, and this is what I tell our millennials, is not mean. Planned Parenthood is the nation's largest abortion vendor in our nation. While their taxpayer funding has been growing, their cancer screenings have been declining, have been cut in half, yet their share of the abortion market has been rising dramatically. Abortions are going down nationally, and they're going up at Planned Parenthood. This is an abortion machine. We need to talk about why we don't need Planned Parenthood anymore. And that's okay to talk about. It's not mean as Christians to talk about that, because we are called to witness the truth. We need to recruit new members. Our motto at Students for Life is belong, believe, behave. We don't just go into campus and do an event and leave. We start groups. We form relationships with people in our communities, and that's what you need to do. Because quite honestly, when people sometimes hear that you're a pro-lifer, they kind of get a negative impression of that. People are scared by the term pro-life, but then they meet you, they like you, they have a conversation with you, and they realize, yeah, you're an ordinary person. You might live an extraordinary life, but they don't actually know that yet. Recruit new members. Recruit new members to our movement. Challenge our institutions. Challenge the media. Take a lesson from President Trump and challenge the media. This will be the most covered March for Life in the history of March for Lives. It's insane. Challenge our universities. Challenge our churches. Talk to your pastors. Talk to your priests. Ask them why we aren't talking about abortion. Ask them why there aren't post-abortion healing resources in our churches and in our parishes. You can be a hero for someone who is hurting in the pews today, but no one in your church was brave enough to talk about this issue. Seek justice. Join the pregnancy resource centers and the maternity homes in your community. Do everything you can to seek justice with that young woman who's in crisis. Be there for her. Help her decide how does she want to live her life? Where does she see herself in 5 years? And make a plan with her. Don't just meet her right there in front of the abortion facility and never again. Walk with her. And the final thing is, and I say this every year, and be able to envision a nation without abortion. I think what's got scared the left, why we had the Women's March, I'll use those terms, I saw a lot of men yelling and spitting at me. But why did they mobilize? Because for the first time, they finally understand what we've been saying for 44 years. Like, people are finally going, oh, your mission is to abolish abortion. Yeah, I haven't been lying. Like, our mission is to abolish abortion, and they see it's actually possible, and they're scared. They don't know where to go. We have to have that vision in our mind and be able to envision a country where abortion is no longer legal and is no longer wanted. And then we need to live out that vision every single day. Men and women, we need heroes. And heroes come in all different forms, all different shapes. You know, we need the rebels who will stand up for truth, the people like, you know, our young students who will just march into that women's march, you know, completely outnumbered and lead the front of the march until we get kicked out. But not all of you want to do that, and that's okay, including my husband. We need people who will stand up to the industry, who will spread the love and kindness, who will be our justice seekers in our communities, working with the women and men who are in crisis. We need those heroes who have the vision like David Daleiden, who said, I'm going to go undercover and show a whole new side to the abortion industry, and I'm going to turn it on its head. And we need those heroes who just have the grit. These are my favorite people that say, no matter what comes my way, no matter what happens, I will keep marching forward, that I will have a stubbornness, an unwillingness to cease to talk about this issue, that I will pitch in where I need, I will join the efforts I can, and I will do everything I can. These are the types of heroes we need in our nation. These are the types of heroes we need in our movement. And men and women, if we are these heroes, if we are these ordinary people that seek these extraordinary lives living for something else, we will abolish abortion. Thank you.
Don't you feel blessed to have Kristan Hawkins as one of our fearless leaders, full of energy and enthusiasm? That's what our movement needs, and we need more of it. So thank you, Kristan, for coming and sharing with us. Next, we have Lauren Mertz, the Director of Strategic Partnership of Live Action, a nonprofit human rights organization dedicated to ending abortion and protecting the right to life. Live Action exposes the truth about abortion to change hearts and minds and counter the misinformation campaign of the multi-billion-dollar abortion industry. Live Action hosts the largest online presence for the pro-life movement, with millions of supporters and volunteers throughout the United States and abroad. Hang on to your seats, because if you haven't seen Live Action's newest video exposing Planned Parenthood's lies, you are in for another shocking experience.
Good morning. Thanks, Arina. So Planned Parenthood often uses their services to defend their $50 million of taxpayer funding. They actually provide, in the USA, only less than 1% of the nation's Pap tests, less than 2% of the nation's breast exams, and 0 mammograms. They use these services constantly to defend themselves of why they should be receiving all of our taxpayer funding. But in reality, they actually perform 30% of the nation's abortions, so they are an abortion corporation. In our latest video that we just released, we expose Planned Parenthood's prenatal care services, explaining that Live Action investigators went undercover to Planned Parenthood as pregnant women trying to keep their children, to keep their babies and continue their pregnancies. So Planned Parenthood repeatedly, so we investigated 97 facilities, and repeatedly they turned us away. Only 5 of the 97 gave us any sort of prenatal services. So Planned Parenthood has one option for most women, and that is abortion. We can show the video.
We don't offer any prenatal care.
We don't offer prenatal care at Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood offers abortion, so they don't offer prenatal care.
Prenatal care. These are the kinds of services that folks depend on Planned Parenthood for.
And a president who will fight for prenatal care.
Prenatal care. And that is what we want to focus on. That is what is so vital.
Thank you for calling Planned Parenthood. My name's how can I assist you today?
Hi, I was hoping to make an appointment for prenatal care.
For what type of service?
Prenatal care, pregnancy care.
We don't have prenatal care here. Planned Parenthood offers abortion, so they don't offer prenatal care.
Okay, just abortions.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no. We wouldn't provide any type of prenatal services here at Planned Parenthood.
We're not a prenatal care provider. No Planned Parenthood does prenatal care. We don't offer prenatal care at Planned Parenthood. We specialize in abortions. You know, that's what our ultrasounds are for, to see how far along the patient is.
Planned Parenthood, we do birth control, things like that, termination. We check for STI, but we don't do prenatal.
We tell you you're pregnant, and we also at Planned Parenthood do the abortions.
Okay.
So we don't do any prenatal services
No
here.
prenatal.
No, we don't do prenatal services. I mean, it's called Planned Parenthood. I know it's kind of deceiving.
Do you have OBGYNs here?
We do not, no.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which is a deceptive name, right? I think the same thing. Or, if you were looking into termination options, we can do that as well.
Did you know that Planned Parenthood can take care of all your reproductive health needs? Whether it's an annual exam, pregnancy testing and counseling, prenatal care, we are here for you with high-quality, low-cost services.
Thank you for holding. This is how can I help you?
Hi. I was wondering if you guys offer prenatal care.
No, we don't. Not at the moment. Neither our Hampton or Richmond office does. We don't offer any prenatal care.
Is there any other clinic you can refer me to?
I don't know of anything. I would look around on the internet.
You can try CareNet. I think they do prenatal care.
CareNet?
It's the first building on the strip here.
We only offer family planning services and abortion services.
Not at all at Planned Parenthood.
Okay, so not at any Planned Parenthood. They don't have prenatal
Correct.
care.
No, see, we don't see pregnant women as a way of giving prenatal care.
Okay.
We see pregnant women, if they are considering other options.
Like what other options? Like what do you see the doctor for?
At this location?
Yes.
So at this location, you guys do medication abortion?
Medication abortion.
What pregnancy services do you offer?
We only offer termination services.
We actually don't offer prenatal services. We're not licensed to do so in Oregon or Washington.
Do any of the Planned Parenthoods?
No, we do not offer any prenatal care.
Wasn't that amazingly done? Let's clap for Live Action's video. Folks, this is the Digital Action Summit. So I would love for you to share this summit right now on Facebook. Go on there and share it. Share this video as well. In just the past few days since this video has come out, it has over 11 million views. This is what it's about. It's about spreading the pro-life message. And we are really thankful for Live Action and the Center for Medical Progress because they have really shown us what Planned Parenthood is all about. Thank you, Lila and team. Next, we have Rebekah Buell. Rebekah is a pro-life speaker and mother to 2 handsome little boys. Today, Rebekah is going to share about her experience with the RU-486 abortion pill and the abortion industry and how she saved her son's life. Let's welcome Rebekah.
Good morning. It is such a privilege to be able to share my story with you. I'll admit it's a bit unique, it's a little bit new, but it's also one that offers so much hope for the pro-life movement. I became pregnant for the first time at 17. Obviously, being so young and having grown up in a Baptist Christian home, this was quite scary. You know, this was not supposed to happen to someone like me, but it did. So obviously I was scared and I was shocked, but because of my Christian roots, I really considered myself pro-life. Now, I lived in a home where we didn't talk talk about topics like sex or abortion, but I knew it was out of the question, so I chose life for that baby. And in about 7 months, which is a very short time frame, a lot happened. I graduated high school early, gave birth to my son Eli, and got accepted and started attending Sacramento State University. And so at 17, as a teen mom, things were really looking up. I was sort of shattering all of these statistics. My parents were really happy for me, and things were going great. And I really wish that I could tell you my story ends there, but it doesn't. About halfway through my freshman year of college, at about 18 and a half years old, the relationship I was in became extremely troubled. It was full of physical and verbal abuse, and I knew that I needed to get out. It wasn't safe for my son, and it wasn't safe for me. But right when I went to do that, I found out I was pregnant again. There I was, about a month away from being 19 years old, doing really well in my first year of college, living in my parents' home, and I was so just at a loss. I sat there staring at a positive pregnancy test thinking, oh my gosh, this cannot be happening to me again. My dad is kind of old school, and although I know he loves me, he had always said, Rebekah, if you were to get pregnant again, just hypothetically here, you'd definitely be kicked out. You'd have to figure it out. And so those words hit me at that moment when I was looking at that pregnancy test, and I knew that I would have to have an abortion in secret, that no one would know about this, that it was something I would never be proud of, something I would probably never talk about, nothing I wanted to do, but just something I had to do. Because surgical abortions are quite invasive, quite expensive, and pretty hard to keep a secret, I decided that I would have a chemical abortion. And I knew, because of the research I did online, that it involved medication, often referred to simply as the abortion pill. Very commonly marketed towards people of my age, very young, kind of modern, again, marketed as natural, less expensive, all of that was right what I needed. I began searching for an abortion clinic, and I live in Sacramento, and in about a 20-mile radius, there are 8 places I could have gone to abort my baby. There are 5 Planned Parenthoods and 3 women's health specialists, so I had a plethora of options. I ended up choosing the first clinic because it was close to my university. I visited there, and although it was brief and cold, and although it was typical abortion practices, monitor turned away from me and it wasn't really very informative, things like that, I still was set on having my abortion that day. I was 5 weeks along, but the woman looks at her watch and she goes, actually, it's Friday and it's about 4 o'clock and we don't give the abortion pill on Fridays. And I thought, okay, that's kind of weird, why am I here? But she said, just come back the following week and we'll get you in. You'll take the medication, this will be over. I said, okay. So I made an appointment to come back the following week at 6 weeks pregnant. At the time, I had a 9-week time frame to go ahead and have this abortion. Now it's 10 weeks, 2.5 months pregnant. And I was all set to go that week, and I had a family emergency come up that prevented me from getting to this appointment. That was the second little hiccup in this road, and at the time, I didn't see it as divine intervention. I didn't see it as a giant red stop sign telling me to just stop and breathe and think about my options. I just saw it as frustrating. I saw it as it getting in the way of this time frame. I just was in that fight or flight mode, and I needed to just get rid of this. So, because they were kind of stringing me along, I ended up contacting Planned Parenthood. I really honestly thought, as a young girl, just shy of 19, that Planned Parenthood was a clinic that was pro-me. Not necessarily pro-life, not necessarily pro-choice, but just pro-me. Their website was empowering, and what they were selling me was not necessarily a procedure or pills, but rather a ticket to a better life. No one wants to buy an abortion, but everyone wants to buy a ticket to a successful life, a better life for their child that they already have, a way to stay in college. So that's how I saw this. That's how I justified it. And then I thought, God's just going to have to forgive me on this one. All set to have the abortion at Planned Parenthood at 7 weeks. The woman goes to draw my blood, and she couldn't find a vein. She said, I'm so sorry, but you cannot have your abortion today. I said, oh no, I'm 7 weeks pregnant. I'm running out of time. She said, just come back next week and we'll take care of you. So on March 13th, 2013, I walked back into that Planned Parenthood clinic, sat down. I had no, pre-abortion counseling. I had none of that. I just filled out a questionnaire, sat down with a woman, and we're talking about how this is, again, supposed to be very natural, less invasive. And I start to tear up, and she says, Rebekah, just because you're sad doesn't mean you're making the wrong decision. And I thought she was so wise. Surely she has sat here with hundreds, maybe thousands of other patients who have felt sad or disappointed that they were in this situation, but who's to say I'm going to walk out of this clinic and ever regret this decision? Who's to say? Surely she would know. And I said, yeah, you're right. And just like that, she handed me a little Dixie cup and gave me the RU486 abortion pill, which I swallowed right in front of her. I was then sent on my way with a brown paper bag of additional medication that I was instructed to take the following day. The second set of pills is called misoprostol, and they don't really tell you how it works. All they say is it expels the rest of the pregnancy. What I didn't know at the time is that misoprostol is commonly given to women in active labor. So I was, in a sense, going to go into labor at home, and that's the information they leave out. I got to my car, and I'm sitting there still outside of Planned Parenthood, going through the bag, and I just start to panic. Perhaps it was my faith that kicked in. Perhaps it was my motherly instincts that kicked in. I don't know, but I got really emotional when I was going through that bag and looking through those pills. And then it hit me. The date was March 13th. The next day, March 14th, was my oldest son, Eli, his first birthday. And I thought, tomorrow's going to be a day that I brought one child into this world and took another one out. And I can't live with myself if that happens. I can't finish this abortion. So I'm crying, and I turn to the phone just like so many girls do these days. I'm just typing in all of these things, and nothing was coming up. And I finally found a hotline number, a 1-800 number. I called it. A nurse manager answered from a pregnancy center in San Diego, about 8 hours away from me. She calmed me down, and she told me that 2 doctors, just about 6 months before, that were her medical directors, had released a regimen in a medical journal that would counteract the abortion pill I took. And that if I could get to a pro-life doctor, I had a chance of reversing the abortion pill. She asked me if I was on board, and of course I was. It was like someone, you're drowning and someone throws you a life raft. You're not going to say no. It was the only hope I had. So I ended up visiting a pro-life doctor that was 2 hours away, the only doctor that would see me in my area. I began progesterone injections that continued on until my second trimester. In the meantime, this clinic, Planned Parenthood, is calling me a number of times, and I thought, you know what? I owe them nothing. The abortion's been paid for. Perhaps they'll be really nice when they call me and I tell them that I've changed my mind. So that's what I did. I called them back and I said, actually, I've changed my mind and I'm now taking steps to reverse my abortion. And they said, do you have any idea what you're doing? Because this is, if it works, which it probably won't, will result in deformities, and you're actually putting your own body at risk. We hear so often these days that, this chant, my body, my choice. But at that moment, I felt like it was not my body or my choice, that I was property of Planned Parenthood, and that they wanted me to finish what I started in their clinic. Those words stuck with me for the remainder of my pregnancy, but I didn't listen, and I was nervous. But on October 20th of 2013, my second son, was born. His name is Zachariah, and I believe we have pictures of him. And he was born perfectly healthy. He is 3.5 years old now, and he is one of the first reversal babies. As of now, there are close to 300 reversal babies. There has been attempts at passing legislation, those are both of my sons, so that women will have to be informed about abortion reversal when they enter the clinic or when they leave the clinic, and that they can't be told the lies that I was told. Look at that face. It is my greatest hope that, again, every woman would be informed and that every child like Zachariah would get a second chance at life. Thank you.
Isn't that an incredible testimony? And it's amazing what we can do with science now, that we are able to do this, and yet the bigger secular scientific community refuses to admit that this is a possibility, and we need to continue to show them pictures of all these babies that we're saving through the abortion pill reversal. Our next speaker is Brandi Swindell. As founder and CEO of Stanton Healthcare, she's establishing life-affirming women's medical clinics that will one day replace Planned Parenthood. Their flagship center is located in Boise, Idaho, right next to a Planned Parenthood, and they are in the process of building a state-of-the-art health clinic next to the mega Planned Parenthood abortion center in Meridian, Idaho. Recently, Stanton Healthcare was featured in Cosmo as a pro-life alternative to Planned Parenthood. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Brandi Swindell.
Good morning. Wow, this has been wonderful. Some amazing talks. I've been in this movement now about 17 years, and I started in my early 20s, and I really love the theme of the March for Life this year, the power of one. And this is one of our little Stanton babies. This is Justice. Isn't that a great name? And talk about the power of one. He's our little activist. He's 3 years old. And in fact, his mom is here with us today, my assistant, Promise. She's doing a good job taking pictures. Yep. And Promise had an unexpected pregnancy and considered abortion and ended up choosing life. And so we call that, we have a billboard campaign out in Idaho right now. We have 8 of those billboards up around the Treasure Valley. And it's our justice banner. But I had a vision, in my early 20s, and a vision and a heart thinking, man, one day could we possibly replace Planned Parenthood? And I began my work as an activist and an advocate, and now I'm the founder and CEO of Stanton Healthcare, and I am really energized being in Washington, D.C. right now. When we look at some of the things that are happening right now, the reality is it's happening. We are replacing Planned Parenthood. Now the question is, how do I know this? Well, let me go through a few things. It's really quite remarkable that we're at a place right now that Congress is ready to and is actually seriously considering defunding Planned Parenthood in the next few months through the reconciliation bill. That's incredible. And how else do I know this? Like was mentioned earlier, Cosmopolitan did a feature piece on Stanton Healthcare. They flew a reporter out. She stayed with us for 2 days, met our clients, met some of our moms, met the babies, and it was so unbelievably compelling because, we're doing this interview and we have a reporter, with us, and you never know how these publications are going to turn out. And it's Cosmo. I mean, they're not necessarily known for being the most pro-life magazine. I'll ask people, have you read Cosmo before? And most of our people, typically, it's not a publication we get. It was a feature piece that did such an incredible job. We could not have written it better ourselves. It was so fair and it was so accurate. And in fact, I brought copies if anybody would like one. But the title is Meet the Woman Who Wants to Take Down Planned Parenthood. I mean, that was literally the title. And what was so compelling, though, and actually they got the title wrong because it really should be Meet the Movement. Meet the squad that wants to replace Planned Parenthood. But what was so powerful is the journalist, she captured the heart and the mission of what we're wanting to do as a movement and why we want to replace Planned Parenthood, because we are a movement of hope and compassion and love. And the reality is Planned Parenthood is not giving that to women, and women deserve better. How else do we know? How else do we know that we're replacing Planned Parenthood? I'm so excited to announce that this approach that we're using of setting up our clinics, our Stanton Healthcare clinics, to provide women with life-affirming options, to provide them an alternative to Planned Parenthood, to really give them access to quality health care, which, by the way, we can do prenatal services, and holistic care. I mean, we're doing things that are so exciting, women's annual exams, all that kind of stuff, partnering with our local hospitals so that we can have their mobile mammogram bus come out to Stanton Healthcare, all those kinds of things that are comprehensive, holistic women's healthcare that women truly deserve. I basically thought, let's build the type of center that women actually deserve, and let's set up shop right next door to Planned Parenthood so there can be a lifeline for women to go to. And we get walk-ins every week. We have our flagship center right next door to Planned Parenthood in Boise, and the property line is 5 feet. When I say next door, we are right next door. And I'm excited to announce that we have bought property next to the new Planned Parenthood, the mega Planned Parenthood in Meridian, Idaho, about 30 minutes from our Boise location. And instead of buying property, just one piece of property on one side, we bought property on each side, both sides of Planned Parenthood. And we're going, okay, and it was an interesting thing. They were joint lots that we had to buy together. The owner would only sell them together. And we're thinking, okay, what are we going to do with this other lot? And so we ended up paying off the land, and a church just bought the other piece of property and is going to build a church there. How incredible is that? How incredible is that? Only God can do that. So we're going to break ground hopefully in March. You're all invited to come out for the groundbreaking and for the ribbon cutting when we get the building built. But we are going to build the first ever life-affirming mega center from the ground up right next door to a mega Planned Parenthood. We're going to show them what healthcare is, and women are going to have an option. Amen? We are replacing Planned Parenthood. And how else? How else do I know we're replacing Planned Parenthood? Because Planned Parenthood is mad. For some reason, they don't like Students for Life. They don't like live action. They really don't like Stanton Healthcare. So much so that they're suing us. Planned Parenthood sues Stanton Healthcare over Meridian conflict. Are you ready for the conflict? You ready? You ready to hear what it is? We had the audacity to take our 36-foot Class A RV that we converted into a mobile clinic, our Stanton Mobile Clinic. We had the audacity to park it in our parking spots in front of our property that I just told you we bought and paid off in the same complex that Planned Parenthood is. They're suing us over the mobile clinic, handing out diapers, formula, ultrasounds at no charge, women's health care, another choice. They're suing us. But here's the thing. We all know their heart, we all know their agenda. What's been incredible about this is the media coverage. And people of goodwill know there's something wrong when one nonprofit women's center sues another nonprofit women's center for simply providing another choice and alternative. We believe this is really going to backfire on Planned Parenthood. We're fighting this. We have great attorneys. We have counsel here in Washington, D.C. We have local counsel. But that's how we know that we are in the process of replacing Planned Parenthood, because they're trying to get rid of us. But we're not going to stop. How else do we know? How else do we know that we're replacing Planned Parenthood? Stanton Healthcare was one of 3 groups that was ousted from the Women's March on Washington. Kristan mentioned that earlier, yeah. And it was so interesting. We got accepted to be a partner. We applied, and I'm going, okay, I guess they don't have a very good vetting process because they're suing us. Planned Parenthood is one of the main organizers. And within 24 hours, we were ousted. But you know what? We don't take our marching orders from Cecile Richards and Planned Parenthood. We marched anyway. Pro-woman, pro-life, right? And how else do we know that we're replacing Planned Parenthood? Promise and I flew in Monday night, and I was invited to speak at a news conference in front of the Capitol building on the heartbeat bill, the heartbeat legislation. Very good bill, good for children in the womb, great for women. And I was invited to speak, and there were several lawmakers that were there. And after I spoke, Congressman Trent Franks came up to me, and he said, "Do you have a few minutes? Can we meet?" And I said, "Sure, I'm here till Saturday." He said, "No, right now. Let's meet right now." He said, "Come with me." And so we went, and he escorted us into the U.S. Capitol building. And you could see the passion in his heart. Wonderful, wonderful pro-life congressman. But you could see it in him that the time is now. We have a window of opportunity right now. And we're looking at defunding Planned Parenthood, but we've also got to go to that next level of making sure that we replace Planned Parenthood in the hearts and minds of the women who need our services in our community, in our communities, in our nation's capital. We need to make sure that there is safe places for women to go. And so as we continue in this important work, I think all of us know we have a new administration. There's a shift occurring. Whatever your beliefs and feelings on that, there is a window of opportunity. And our hard work, what we've been doing for many, many years, it's paying off. It's paying off. And so let's keep it up. And my message to everyone here and to those watching is that now is the time. Now is the time to be an activist and an advocate like you have never been before. And And you know, there's so many things that people can do, and some of the biggest things for people is we need bloggers and writers out there that are sharing the truth and the reality that Planned Parenthood is not about helping women. And that's why that live action video is so powerful. We know it, and it shows the truth, what we've always known, and the message is getting out there. You know, there was, before I got... The same week that we got served with the lawsuit from Planned Parenthood, first part of December, I was out here and happened to have an interview set up with a reporter who's on our side. She's very life-minded, and I gave her the scoop on this on the lawsuit, and she wrote just an incredible article that we were able to use as soon as it went public, media-wise, out in Idaho and nationally, that set the tone of the truth and the reality of what this lawsuit was about. So I can just tell you, as an activist and an advocate for women's health care, those writers and those bloggers and those social media activists, that is so powerful right now. It is so incredibly important for organizations and activists like myself. You help fight the mainstream media, and you help keep them accountable, which is so incredibly important. Now, one of the most important ways that we know that we are replacing Planned Parenthood, and that we can do this, and that we are doing it, and we're in the process of doing it. I could keep talking, but again, it's those faces. That face right there shows what we're doing, replacing Planned Parenthood. But I have a video that I want to show, so if we can cue that up. It's a video, and it's one of our clients, and it shows really the heart of what we do, and the truth, the comparison between Planned Parenthood and what they offer and really don't offer for women, and the truth of what we can offer as a pro-life movement to women who need our services. Do we have that video? Okay.
Hi, my name is Amanda, and I'm from Boise. And we found Stanton right after we found out we were pregnant, and we are married, and it's something that you would think would come so naturally, and it didn't. It was pretty scary. We had always planned on having a family, but it wasn't until we actually got pregnant that it was kind of a surprise, and we didn't expect it to happen so fast. And my parents had actually just moved away right when we found out, and my husband's parents do not live here, and so we needed something just to make us feel like it was going to be okay, and we could get through this, because it's a huge change and everything changes. When we first went to Stanton, it was at 6 weeks, and we were able to see our baby and see that he actually was alive and moving around, and that's something that a lot of doctors' offices don't even offer. As scary as it was amazing just to see that ultrasound, and just to see that this is a real baby, and this is something that is moving, and its heart is beating, and everything is alive. And it wasn't just the ultrasound, it was a support system. There were so many questions, that we had, and, do we have enough money? Are we gonna make good parents? How are we gonna keep this kid alive, let alone him just in my tummy? What vitamins do I need to take? I mean, you can Google everything, but there's so many different answers to those questions. What doctor do I need to go to? When do I need to go to the doctor? What's birth gonna be like? And it was more than just a doctor's office. It felt like my parents were here. It felt like a family that really cared and really understood, and there was always a smiling face, even on days that I was pretty terrified or just didn't feel good. And they always were offering things. Every time we'd come in here, they would ask if we needed more maternity clothes, if we needed, more prenatal vitamins, are you taking your prenatal vitamins? There was so many different things, and now that Oliver is born and he's here, they're always offering us baby clothes, and they want to see him, and they want to really share in that joy of that life that we helped create. This is Oliver. He is 4 months old, and Stanton really helped us along and really helped us with him and helped us. It was a really crazy, wild ride that we wouldn't have any other way, and they really helped us along and helped our family become complete with this little guy. Thank you, Stanton, for everything that you have done and for completing our family and helping us along the way and being that support system that we really needed.
so much for all you're doing for the pro-life movement, because we need to have an answer to Planned Parenthood, and what you're providing through Stanton Healthcare is the answer we need. And so we're going to take it down, because we don't need Planned Parenthood. We don't need Planned Parenthood. We're going to get rid of them. Now we will hear from Congressman Randy Hultgren, who represents Illinois' 14th Congressional District, which includes the 7 collar counties of Chicago. He has served at multiple levels of government, entering Congress with the class of 2010. He is a member of the Financial Services Committee, the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, and a number of caucuses and other congressional organizations, including the Pro-Life Caucus, the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. He was also named a co-chair of the Values Action Team for the 1115th Congress. Please help me welcome Randy Hultgren.
Thank you, Arina. So good to be with you. Brandi, thank you. What a great message. Did you see the eyes on that little boy? Oh my goodness, they are amazing. I love that. They just light up the room. That was wonderful. So good to be with you. My name's Randy Hultgren, Congressman for the 14th Congressional District. Just came back from Philadelphia this morning. I got an early train back, was up with my colleagues for our Republican retreat up there. And I give greetings from the rest of my colleagues, many of them on a bus right now, and going to be meeting us over on the mall in not too many minutes to be able to kick off a great day. It's one of my favorite days of the year, the March for Life. Such a positive day, and what I get so encouraged by with the March for Life is the number of young people that are here, that we are winning. We are winning this discussion, this debate, this change of mind of saying that life is precious. All of life is precious and is vital for us to do everything we can to protect every single life from the very beginning to the very end. And that is what today is about. And what I think is going to be incredible, too, is just the clear contrast from just a couple of days ago of something that I thought was really upsetting on Saturday, hard to even look at, and something so different today of optimism and hope and value of every single human being. So thank you for letting me be here. It is such a privilege to serve and to have so many colleagues who share my passion for life. I'm honored to be serving on the Values Action Team and want to thank Family Research Council for their great work. Tony Perkins, David Christensen, the entire crew here at Family Research is amazing. I mean, just really such good ideas, helping us, coming alongside with members of Congress to make sure that we have a strategy in place to take advantage of this opportunity. And I agree with my great friend that Brandi talked about, Congressman Trent Franks, that we've got a window of time that we have to take advantage of. We cannot blow this. We cannot waste this chance. Things are happening quickly. A lot of good things and a lot of things that we need to continue to push on. So quickly, want to give you an update of some of the things we're focused on and that we're just talking about at our retreat. In the retreat, Kathy McMorris-Rogers, our conference chairwoman, gave time for the Values Action Team. I think it's the first time ever that the Values Action Team had a place at the conference retreat to be able to talk about values issues and specifically the strategy and plan that we have fighting for pro-life issues, pro-family, and religious freedom, freedom of conscience. And so we were able to present some things and already so excited with the new administration, steps that are being taken that are unprecedented. Let me talk about that a little bit. First of all, we've taken steps to defund Planned Parenthood through the House, passed our reconciliation bill. It's in the Senate, so it's really that first step of also addressing health care. And so it was defunding Planned Parenthood and also making sure that there's transparency with the Affordable Care Act, with insurance plans that are out there to state if there is abortion coverage in that. It's so important for us to know, and it has been hidden through the Obama administration and HHS. Really difficult to know if, as people are paying their premiums, if they're actually paying for abortion coverage. So with this new bill that we've introduced, it will provide that transparency and that clarity. So we're working in the Senate right now. There's going to be a conference committee, my hope is, and what we're going to keep doing is fighting to make sure that this all stays in there because it is so important. Other steps right away that have been taken that I'm so excited about, the Trump administration and President Trump signed the Mexico City policy, I think maybe you saw this, but the Mexico City policy is so important because it's recognizing the idea of the Hyde Amendment, no taxpayer dollars being spent for abortion. We want that here in America, but we also want to make sure that that's the case around the world. And that hasn't been the case. So oftentimes, our State Department, our aid that has gone to other countries has actually been used to fund abortion in other countries. And oftentimes it's in countries that don't want this, that really are opposed to this, and yet some of our entities that have been in other countries have been pushing this and making sure that this is part of the policy. If you want our help and our aid, you have to provide this coverage. What President Trump signed was an order saying that this stops, that this money will not be used to fund abortion. But it even went further than previous administrations. Some other administrations had done, making sure that in the family planning accounts that money couldn't be used. This is in all accounts in foreign aid that nothing can be used for abortion. It's above and beyond. And one of my really good friends and heroes in Congress is Chris Smith. Congressman Chris Smith from New Jersey is amazing, our chairman of the Pro-Life Caucus. But I just was talking with Chris at the retreat, and all of us, he can't wipe the smile off his face. We can't wipe the smile off our face because this is beyond what we could have even hoped for of the steps that are being taken early on. Also with Vice President Pence and his long-standing, proven commitment to life, to family, to religious freedom, freedom of conscience. We know that this is going to continue and keep moving forward. So my hope is that we will see Planned Parenthood defunded, that will make sure that if there are resources going, they're going to places like Stanton, to some of the community healthcare organizations, which are such a better place for women to receive care, no abortion provided in those places, but also there's much better coverage. In my district, they're all over the place. They're where people really need them, where women and men can get access to them, and it's providing the care that they need without the abortion being provided as well. So we're going to continue to push on that, continue to push on protection of freedom of conscience. But again, talking with my good friend Trent Franks and Chris Smith, we have an opportunity to go a little, I hope, even a lot further. So I talk about, protection from Planned Parenthood, our taxpayer dollars going to Planned Parenthood, or our taxpayer dollars going to other countries and pushing abortion there, making sure we stop that to protect our right of conscience, that no one should have to pay for somebody else's abortion when we know that this is wrong, this is killing, this is absolutely the wrong direction to go. But we need to go beyond that, and I think this is the opportunity that we have, and the hope that I see today in the March for Life is changing this discussion of recognizing that all life is precious. And that's where we're taking steps with the Born Alive bill. When there is a botched abortion and a baby is born alive, to make sure that that baby receives care and treatment. It really gets people thinking who haven't thought before of saying that, if a 5-month-old in development, if there's an abortion attempt there and the baby is born alive, medical help ought to be given. They ought to make sure that a doctor doesn't just push that baby aside or throw that baby away, but that baby is protected and cared for. And if we're doing that for one that's born at 5 months of development, then how can we kill one at 7 months of development or beyond? So I think it starts this thinking. Also, pain capable is another one we're going to continue to talk about. Almost every other country in the world has recognized that abortions beyond 20 weeks, all abortion is horrible, but we know that these babies at 20 weeks of development can feel pain and ought to be protected. And again, this gets people thinking and realizing that this is life in the mother's womb, and it ought to be protected. Also Prenda, where we have sex selection and other selections that are happening. And as we have these debates and these discussions, it goes beyond just protecting freedom of conscience where we don't have to pay for abortion, but also to lessen the number of abortions. Let me wrap up with this, and I'd love to answer any questions you might have. But what I'm really excited about as well is coming up on Tuesday, which happens to be the National Prayer Breakfast, is also on Tuesday. But President Trump is saying he's going to announce his next nominee for the Supreme Court. And this is generational change, potentially, of having a Supreme Court that really protects the Constitution, is committed committed to the Constitution and not rewriting the Constitution as we've seen some other Supreme Courts do. Let's get back to that. Let's have someone who's committed to that, but also has proven that life is precious and that they're not going to rewrite the Constitution in order to push an agenda, as we saw happen in past years, and we certainly saw in the 70s. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to continue to be talking about that, working on that, but not only a Supreme Court, but also federal court, U.S. district courts and U.S. courts where there's just, I think, at least 100 openings where we have a chance to put in judges who, again, are committed to our Constitution, committed to families, committed to life. So these are exciting times. I never expected we'd be in this position if you would have asked me 6 months ago what was going to happen. And yet we've got some really incredible opportunities because of the steps we've seen already happen. When President Trump was speaking to us yesterday and he brought up the Mexico City policy, there was an immediate standing ovation from my colleagues, the Republican conference. That is so encouraging to me. One of my saddest days when I served in our state legislature in Illinois was when there was a push to not allow parents to be notified if their minor daughter was going to receive an abortion. And at that moment in Illinois, we had Democrats and some Republicans who stood up and cheered that they defeated the ability for parents to be involved in something as horrible as not be able to give advice and help and love and care to a minor daughter in that situation. Just the opposite I felt happened yesterday. I was in that room where people stood up recognizing that this is significant. This is a new opportunity and a new day, and we just need to continue to stay engaged, stay involved, and I'll close with this and then would love to ask if you have any questions. But I would ask for you and those who are watching and those who are listening to be praying for us. This is a challenging time. We need wisdom. We need to be smart in the strategies that we're taking, but we also need God's direction and God's help. This is, I think, directional, literally, for our nation, of what type of nation we're going to be and what kind of nation our kids and our grandkids will have going forward. We can impact that, I think, in this next 6 to 10 months and next 4 years, but we need wisdom and help and strength and courage to do what is right. So thank you, Family Research Council, for doing this. Thank you, all of you, for being engaged. Thank you to every person who's coming to March today. It's one of the most honorable, respectful days that I've ever seen, where literally hundreds of thousands of people will be here. And then you can walk on the mall afterwards, and it's perfectly clean. It's like no one was there, but the impact is there. And that was a little bit different than on Saturday. I don't know if you saw that. But this is the right thing for America, and I think it'll be such a clear difference from what we've seen, at the hope and optimism that we can have. So thank you. Thank you for letting me be here for a few minutes, and together let's lock arms. Let's be praying for each other. Let's encourage each other, and let's share ideas. We are so open to good ideas that can get done that will protect life, protect families, and make sure that America is leading the way as that hope and light of protecting life. So thank you so much. With that, I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you might have.
I can ask the first question.
Great.
Jared at Family Research Council.
Hey, Jared.
We've got such an opportunity before us now with an administration that's wanting to take pro-life measures. What can we, as your constituents, speaking broadly across the country, what's the best way for us to interact with our members of Congress in, there's a sense that there may be a sense of urgency on a lot of these pro-life issues. What's the best way for us to interact with you and encourage you along as you bring forth these measures?
Thank you. Well, I think it is connecting with your members of Congress, House members, Senate members, talking to them, seeing if you can have a chance to sit down and meet with them. If that's just not possible, talking on the phone with staff members, connecting with them, letting them know your passion, your concern, your ideas, sending letters that you've crafted. We always appreciate emails. We always appreciate postcards, mass-produced postcards, but they don't have the same effect of someone taking the time to sit down and write a letter to us. We know your passion, and all of these get through to us, and we see everything that comes in, but there's something special when someone takes the time to come and sit down with us or to write out a letter and let us know why this is something that's important to you. And then I think also letting us know that you are supporting us, that you're praying for us, that you want us to do the right thing, and that you are going to stand by us through this difficult time and stand by our families, because this isn't going to be easy. As Brandi said before, the opposition isn't going to roll over. They're going to fight with everything they've got, and so we need to be courageous. We need to do what's right, but we also need to know that people are behind us and backing us up. Yes?
Scott Spage is in
Hey,
from
Scott.
Virginia. You're moving in the House to codify the Hyde Amendment permanently.
Yes.
What's your estimate on the votes in the House as well as the Senate?
Well, I think the House will be very good. I think it'll be 230 plus, maybe 240 or even above that, which I'm encouraged by, and so I don't think it'll be a real close vote. We need 218, so I think that will be very strong. The Senate is a little tougher, and we need some help there. It's one of these things where we're going to need 60 votes, unless it's part of reconciliation, where it would have the 51 vote, and it could be part of one of the reconciliation times. We only have 2 shots probably this year at reconciliation, tied to FY17 budget and FY18 budget coming up in a few months. But most likely we're going to need 60 votes for that. It has been something that when you talk to the American public, vast majority say, no, taxpayer dollars should not be spent in this way. And I love that it's called the Hyde Amendment. I grew up in Henry Hyde's district. I grew up in Wheaton, Illinois, and Henry Hyde was my congressman growing up. And he was absolutely one of my heroes, such an amazing voice for life, a statesman for life, someone who was so respected and so consistent and strong. And so it's a good reminder for us members now who are serving to hope to step a little bit in those big footsteps that people like Henry Hyde have made. Another great hero of mine, Joe Pitts, who's just recently retired, and I'm honored to be filling in. It took 4 of us now as co-chairman to fill in for Joe Pitts with the Values Action Team. Let me just say one last thing on that. We've been working really hard just to continue the great work that Joe Pitts did and had done for over 20 years with the Values Action Team. But we've got, I think we're going to have over 100 members of the House who are part of the Values Action Team. We've got an executive director now with the Values Action Team so that we can be more proactive, communicate better, look for opportunities at every chance we can to make an impact. Again, thank you. So good to be with you all. Let's have a great day. Let's celebrate and let's protect life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Hultgren, for coming and speaking about the pro-life agenda in Congress. Your work adds value to the pro-life community, and we look forward to working with you in the future to pass these pro-life bills. Now we're going to do something a little different. We are going to head to the mall to get a live report on the March for Life with FRC Action's Brent Kylan. Brent, what's it like out there?
Thank you, Arina. Hello to our online viewers. This is Brent. I'm out on the National Mall close to the Washington Monument. Behind me are the gates to get into the March for Life. We've already got people streaming in from across the country, and it's a lot warmer this year than last year. People are excited about that, but I've met a number of people while I've been out here this morning that I'd like to introduce you to. Behind me is a group of high school students from Arizona, traveling all the way from Arizona to be here. And I'd like to introduce you to Kelly here. Kelly's kind of the ringleader. Kelly, could you tell us a little bit about where you're from and a little bit about your group and coming to DC for this?
Sure, we're from St. Mary's Catholic High School in Phoenix, Arizona, and we actually are just celebrating our centennial year this year, so 100 years. We've actually got 50 students traveling with us right now, a group of 50. We're so excited to be here. We're pro-life through and through, and we're so excited to stand up for it today.
That is awesome. It's great to see young people here. Now, as I understand it from talking to you, this is not your first march this year.
Right. Yeah, this is actually my 5th time being here, so I'm lucky enough to have this be part of my...
Well, we'll get back to Brent, and hopefully we'll get the rest of that story. Now we will actually go to Brandon Buell. We have actually 2 Buells on our lineup this year, but there's no relation. They're both really awesome, incredible people with incredible stories, and you've heard Rebekah Buell's story earlier. If you're watching online or you're sitting here in the room, please be sure to continue sharing on Facebook and continue to spread the message about the Digital Action Summit. I want to tell you a bit about Brandon and Brittany and Jaxon. Brandon is co-trustee of the Jaxon Strong Foundation and co-author of the book Don't Blink, along with his wife and Jaxon's mother, Brittany. Brandon and Brittany are proud parents of Jaxon. Jaxon was born with an extreme and incurable brain malformation. Now, Jaxon has surpassed the expectations given to him. He continues to grow and progress, and despite the challenges he faces, he is inspiring thousands of people while still defying the odds. The Jaxon Strong Community Facebook page has over 400,000 followers. How many of us can claim that? So they're doing something right. Most importantly, Brandon is Jaxon's father, who is here today with us to once again lend a voice to Jaxon's story and a father's voice within the pro-life community to continue advocating for the belief that every life has purpose and value. Now, let's watch a short clip of Jaxon before Brandon comes to the stage.
What do you think, bud? What do you think? Oh, is that fun? Yeah.
You playing? Press
Get
the
the
button.
piano. You gotta get the key, buddy.
Get it, buddy. There you go.
Oh, wow.
Good job. Good job, bud.
Good job, buddy.
Good
Wow,
job,
Jaxon. Good job, buddy.
Where are you going?
You really got into that note.
Yeah.
That was good.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Arina, for the introduction, and thank you to the Family Research Council for hosting this event once again, and it's a blessing for our family to be a part of it. I have the true honor and privilege to talk about my son, who you just saw in that video. That video was about 2 to 3 weeks ago, and it's pretty remarkable when you have followed Jaxon as long as we have, and seen the progress every day for him to be able to respond, to be able to move and do things like that with everything that he's up against. So I have the true pleasure of talking about him, and I did want to come today to represent my family. I wanted to represent being a father first and foremost. That's why even on the brochure, the agenda for this event, listing me as a speaker, it said father first and foremost, because it really, I take that role very, very seriously. And I take it seriously because not only has Jaxon been through a lot, so has my wife, Brittany. And I take the role as a father seriously for those reasons, and because Jaxon needs the best from me every single day, and so does my wife. A lot of firsts happened last year. I was invited here to speak for the first time, and that was my first time coming to D.C. since I was in middle school. It was my first time getting stuck in a blizzard. And that doesn't happen a lot where I grew up in Central Florida. We don't have a lot of blizzards there. And so I ended up getting stuck for 2 to 3 extra days, hung around and have nearly enough clothes at all for running out in the snow, 2 feet of snow, going out and finding the Weather Channel team to hang out with them. That's a true story. I have pictures of that. But I wanted to make the most of it. And what I found out was that coming to D.C. and being a part of the pro-life movement, the community, and witnessing it for the first time, I grew up in a Christian home, I grew up in the church, but I didn't realize the magnitude, the importance that this issue, this debate, and this true fight that we have, that it has. And I come to you today as a father also because I realize that, as Kristan alluded to earlier, having a young father stand up and be bold with conservative Christian beliefs in the pro-life movement, it's not easy to find that. And if I can just stand and be one single father from a small town and do that for my family, for my son, then that's what I'm going to do. So I'm excited. Another first this year is that Brittany and Jaxon are here. It's their first ever trip to D.C. It's their first time to witness the pro-life movement and community as well, and I love that. I love that I get to be here and experience that. I believe that keeping God in my family, in the center of my family, keeping God in the center of my marriage with Brittany is incredibly important. I believe that the role of a mother and a father together in the same household, being there for their son, their daughter every single day is incredibly important. And every single day I strive to be a better husband, strive to be a better father, because they need that from me. They deserve that from me. And even though I'll fall short every single day of reaching that goal of being the best husband and best father, it means that the very next day I get to try again and do it again. For those of you that are not truly yet familiar with Jaxon and his story, as Arina was mentioning, it kind of all started at the 17-week ultrasound. And Brittany and I were kind of anxious. We went in a couple weeks earlier than we probably were supposed to. We wanted to know, are we having a boy? Are we having a girl? We selfishly wanted a boy. And we found out that day that we were having a boy. We were having a little Jaxon. But the very next morning, my wife got a phone call on the way to work. And that kind of changed everything. It was the first time we heard the word spina bifida, which was the first of 6 different misdiagnoses we were given for Jaxon. But they believed then that there was a serious concern for Jaxon for his life and that he may not make it. His head, his brain, the growth was behind and ended up being behind throughout the rest of the pregnancy as well. So what followed that first phone call were many weeks, many visits. I couldn't even count how many visits to specialty clinics, looking at ultrasounds, how far behind, what are we looking at here, what's the outcome going to be? And at one point, they suggested we go talk to a genetic counselor who gave us our pregnancy options. And as you can imagine, one of the first options that was mentioned was the word termination, which I call abortion, the same thing, just the real term of it. And it was a quick conversation because we told them, well, that's not going to happen. We're not going to go there. We're going to give our son a chance to make it. You're telling us he probably won't make it, but that's fine. We're not going to play God. We're not going to make that decision. We're going to give him every chance that we can to fight and to live. The true diagnosis that Jaxon actually has, it was not given to him until he was almost 1 year old. And we went to Boston Children's Hospital. We needed a second opinion. And his actual diagnosis is microhydranencephaly, which is closely related to microcephaly, which a lot of us have heard about recently due to the Zika virus. Now, there's no relation to the Zika virus and to Jaxon, but it's closely the same. And there's not a lot of literature out there. So when you have a diagnosis for your child as a parent, the first thing you do, like Kristan mentioned earlier, is go to the computer, Google it. What can we find? If you Google Jaxon's diagnosis of microhydranencephaly, you're going to get a few sites that have maybe a paragraph on what that will mean. And then you're going to see Jaxon. You're going to see Jaxon's pictures. You're going to see Jaxon Strong, his nickname. You're going to see articles about him that have been written because there is not a lot to be found on an incurable, very severe diagnosis that most children pass away from. And that's why a lot of parents getting that news don't make the same decision that Brittany and I did. But we did make that decision. And not only did we make that decision, but we decided that we wanted to share Jaxon. And so we created a Facebook page. We had no plans and had no intentions of it growing the way that it has. As Arina said, there's now over 400,000 people around the world, I think in over 70 different countries, that follow any post that we write. And all I have to do is put a picture of Jaxon up there, and there's like 15,000 likes just because he has cute hair or something. So it works. But that wasn't our purpose. That wasn't what we had in mind. But we found out quickly, and we believed quickly, that Jaxon's story needs to be shared. People need to hear this good news about this. And we also realized very quickly that, we have to do something to give back as well. And just to also mention, after Jaxon was born in the hospital, we spent about a month in the NICU in Orlando, Florida. And finally the doctors said, there's really nothing we can do. There's really nothing that we can do. So our advice is take your son home, give him comfort, care for him, and we're going to set you up with hospice. Because no one truly believed that Jaxon was going to make it. In fact, a geneticist told us directly when he was about 3 or 4 months old that Jaxon will not live to see the age of 2. Well, today, January 27th, 2017, Jaxon is officially and exactly 2 years and 5 months old. And as we progress and get closer to 2.5, he is showing us no signs of going anywhere anytime soon. So Brandi and I thought about, how can we share this story more? How can we, from all the positive, overwhelmingly support that we're receiving, how do we give back? And we thought of a foundation. So we started the Jaxon Strom Foundation. It is a not-for-profit private foundation. Brandi and I are the co-trustees. It's a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, and we wanted to do something within that foundation that kind of made sense for Jaxon's life and who Jaxon was. It's absolutely dedicated to our son. And the mission that we have as a family, but also within the foundation, is to raise funds and awareness for neurological research. It's to advocate for individuals that live with a disability like our son. And it's also to share the belief that every life does have value and a purpose. And we chose that mission very purposefully because it had everything to do with Jaxon, so that it also would benefit 3 very passionate areas of focus that we have: neurological research, the special needs community, and the pro-life community. And this month, we've had the privilege to cut our first checks as a foundation. And again, it's just 2 people with some legal counsel, so we do everything correctly behind it. In the calendar year 2016, our foundation raised just over $7,500. And I'm very happy to say that over 99% of that $7,500 is being donated back to 3 very well-deserving organizations. The first within the neurological research is the Christopher A. Walsh Laboratory, which is studying neural tube defects that Jaxon has and diagnosis similar to Jaxon. They're located in Boston, Massachusetts, and affiliated with Boston Children's Hospital, which is the hospital that gave us the actual diagnosis for Jaxon around his first birthday. For advocating for special needs, we chose the Ronald McDonald House of Durham and Wake in North Carolina. About 95% of the families that stay at that Ronald McDonald House, and we are one of those families that have stayed at Ronald McDonald Houses before, and we know the impact that can have for families during one of the most challenging times in their lives, displaced from their home. They have a place to stay with a shower, a bed, warm meals for free. But 95% of those families that stay at that Ronald McDonald House are being seen at Duke University Medical Center, where their children during that very difficult time are fighting for their life. They have special needs, an adverse medical condition, and truly an amazing organization that deserved that donation. And finally, for the pro-life aspect of it, we chose APLOG, the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs. A year ago, I stood on the stage and I shared one of thousands of messages we've received on Facebook, and this one has always stood out to us. It actually went into the book that we recently wrote, and I stayed in contact recently with this person that messaged us back, but she works at an OBGYN clinic somewhere in the United States, and she said, when we see, I saw Jaxon's story, I had to reach out to you, because when we see ultrasounds that look like what you guys saw, we are trained to suggest abortion. But because of your son and his story, I will no longer do that. I always remember that message, and it made perfect sense to me in that third aspect of our foundation, that we should find an organization that's in the medical world, and that also is in the pro-life community, that still believes today that even in the midst of an adverse pregnancy, that they will believe in the value of that child and that life. These 3 organizations are all 501c3 not-for-profits, and they're all committed to work that believes in the value of life in some way. And I've now realized that because of this, Jaxon's story, his life, has already come full circle. He's already inspiring thousands around the world, but now officially his life is giving back monetarily to organizations that it will help benefit other children and families in the future. And realizing that was pretty cool. But Brandi and I, we believe that God actually blessed us with Jaxon, and we believe that God created Jaxon exactly how he meant to, knowing that Brandi and I had to be strong. Even though I talk about it, I get choked up. We had to be strong to see the value in our son's life, to know that we have to be a couple of faith, stand strong, go forward, and no matter what happens, give him that chance. And we gave him the chance to live. The most innocent among us, the unborn child, they cannot make that decision. We, the ones who have already been given the right to life, have to make that decision for them, to give them the same chance that we were already given. So when you think about it in that way, how can there be any other choice but life? We were given the opportunity to write a book, which is right here. It's called Don't Blink. And we're proud of the book because it is very honest and open. And I'll be honest with you, if you do not want to read a book that has Christian aspirations in it and how we talk about our faith and a pro-life community and support of that, if you don't want to hear about Jaxon's toughest days, his best days, and us just sharing our family's journey, this book is not for you. But if you're the opposite of that and you want to find something of hope in tough situations, then I hope you read the book in some way, shape, or form, and I hope it leaves an imprint on your life in a positive way. And it's funny because our family along this journey, we've been labeled a lot of things by an opposition that does not stand for the same things, that does not see value in Jaxon's life at all, that completely discounts anything he's done, any progress that our son has made, and the impact that I believe he's had on this world, and a positive impact. And we've learned a lot about ourselves through the internet as well. But through any type of negative comment that we've ever received, any hate mail that I've had to read, and even sadly death threats that our family has received, simply for giving Jaxon a chance to live and simply for boldly sharing his story with others. It's kind of the same as what every single pro-life advocate is going to have to face at some point that probably you've already faced. So instead of being pro-life, we can't be called that, can we? No, we're anti-choice or anti-abortion. Instead of me living simply as a Christian, I'm now anti-gay. And rather than organizations like the Family Research Council, still standing today in today's society for Christian beliefs and for a pro-life stance, they're now called, in some circles, as sad as it is, a hate group for still standing on the Bible. We cannot vote conservative, Republican, or against an awesome candidate like Hillary Clinton, because then we're simply diagnosed with Islamophobia or homophobia or xenophobia or claustrophobia or whatever phobia you can think of, or whatever one they want to make up next week so it kind of gives them more leverage and credibility, or so they think, against the stance against us. But the truth of the matter, at least in my opinion, is very simple. We stand for valuing all life, regardless. And they're okay with killing even the innocent, as long as it fits into their agenda. But for our family, through every post we've ever written, any article or book that's been written, the foundation dedicated to our son, and any time that my voice, like right now, may be heard, and even though we will continue to face malicious attacks from the opposition that we have, I'm simply advocating, and I will continue to advocate for the truth that I believe in, for the positive difference I believe it can make in a world that already sees way too much negativity, hate, and terror. And I will continue to be a voice for my son until the day that I hope and pray that I get to see, when his cute little self can walk up on the stage and tell his own story himself. And I was told not to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And she'll hurt me later for it. I want to talk a second about my wife. My wife, Brittany, Jaxon's mother, she's given so much of herself. She really has. No one will ever know the amount of love, patience, and sacrifice that she has given to our family. She is absolutely beautiful on the outside, but she is extraordinarily beautiful on the inside. When I rehearsed this, I didn't cry at all. It's amazing. And I say this all the time, that I've never met another person, another human being, that has as big of a heart, a strong will, determination, and independence, and yes, a stubbornness that serves her very, very well. And I also say this all the time, but my wife and my son have impacted me enormously. And because of them, I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better Christian, and I'm a stronger man, except when I'm talking in front of a crowd and crying today. So, if you guys don't mind, real quick, will you please help me welcome the better 2/3 of my family to the stage real quick, please. I'll make it quick, I promise. I have the easy job of speaking in front of a crowd, especially when you compare it to the strength that the two of these guys show every single day. Just as my wife and my son have encouraged and inspired me, I want to challenge everyone out there to do the same. Inspire and encourage one another. And love and serve others still today. Love and serve others, even when you have to love your opposition, even when that opposition certainly does not return that love. When your opposition stands against you, when they hate you, when they despise you, when they mock you, when they persecute you, love them in return. I don't care how much society changes, how much it already has changed. I don't care that the same old biblical truths and Christian and conservative and pro-life stances that we have as individuals and as organizations, they're no longer considered cool or popular, and we're certainly not considered to be politically correct. I don't care. Though society has changed and will continue to change, not one page of the Bible and not one word spoken and written by Jesus Christ himself has ever changed. On the front page of jacksonstrong.com, website dedicated to our little guy here, and to the Jaxon Strong Foundation, there are 2 verses. The first is Jeremiah 1:5, and it states, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." Just from that verse alone, I know that I stand on the right side of this fight, of this issue, because God has formed every single one of us in the womb by his design, just like with Jaxon. So I'm sure, bless you. So I know, cute baby sneezes. So I know how God feels about abortion from that one verse. And the other verse is Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future." That future for Jaxon is uncertain. He has his challenges. But that future for all of us is uncertain. So how will we spend the time that we are given? For me, I will gladly continue to stand and fight for the beliefs that I have. I will fight for him. I will fight for her. I will fight for us. And I will fight within a pro-life movement and community as a Christian, as a husband, and as a father. So for Brittany and for Jaxon, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today to share his very strong, credible story, and God bless.
We have to give another round of applause to the Buell family for their courage, for standing up for life, and for being such an example to us. And I am blessed to call you friends. We will now take a short break. Please return, and after the break, we're going to have FRC's own president, Tony Perkins. Thank you.
Welcome back to the ProLifeCon here at FRC. Glad to have you along this morning. Great day here in Washington, D.C. Actually, the weather is nice compared to previous years, so looking forward to being out there on the mall. I have the privilege of welcoming our next guest, and I am proud to welcome Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, who joins us live via Skype as she returns with her colleagues from the retreat, the GOP retreat in Philadelphia. Now, let me give you just a little bit of information about Congresswoman Tenney. She is newly sworn in as a member of Congress representing New York's 22nd Congressional District, but she is not new to the pro-life movement. In the New York State Assembly, she was the leading force behind the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, legislation that ends late-term abortions in New York after 5 months. And FRC was proud to endorse her and is actually thrilled that she's joining the growing chorus of pro-life voices on Capitol Hill. And we're excited to have yet another Congresswoman that is leading the charge on life. Please welcome Congresswoman Claudia Tenney.
We have a very exciting day. Yesterday, meeting obviously with our newly elected President Trump, Vice President Mike Pence, who's going to make an historic appearance today at the March for Life. We're very excited about that as well. We also got to hear from Theresa May, the new speaker. We see a lot of parallels with her relationship with Donald Trump. We're hoping it's going to be as beautiful and fruitful as the Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan that we remember from the past. But this is really an important day. We had unanimous vote, as you know, on H.R. 7 on to eliminate the public federal funding of abortions, and I believe it wasn't a unanimous vote last year when that bill came before the floor, but I'm happy to say that we got the unanimous vote. Paul Ryan was very excited about it, our speaker, and mentioned that, and very, very happy and honored to represent the 22nd District in the life movement. So we're all on the bus headed to the March for Life. There's a group of Congress members here behind me and in front of me. So. I think I'm losing your audio.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Tenney, for giving us an update up there.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Well, we're on our. I'm not sure how much further away we are. Joe Wilson's sitting next to me. He might be able to tell me. How many hours? We have a little. We're on our way. Let's do it this way. So 20 minutes out. We're 20 minutes out, so we'll be there soon, right to the march. And we left a little early today just because we're all committed to the life movement, and we want to be sure that we're going to be there early and to continue to stand up for the unborn, the most innocent in our society. So really excited about this. It's my first time attending the march in D.C. Also my first time as a member of Congress. I know I've attended a number of life marches in my district in my area, but this is particularly exciting as a member of Congress. And as I said, we have our own Vice President, former Congressman Mike Pence there, who has a long-standing record on supporting life, and we're just thrilled that he's going to be there as well to represent our government.
Thank you so much. We need great, strong representatives like you to lead the way, and especially as we start with this new administration and all the pro-life fights. We appreciate your leadership. So thank you. We'll see you out there.
Thanks. See you there. We appreciate it. God bless.
And thank you to Tony, our fearless leader, for coming up and giving his remarks. Our next speaker is Melissa Ohden, who has recently shared a fuller version of her story in our FRC lecture. Melissa is the survivor of a failed saline infusion abortion in 1977. Despite initial concerns regarding Melissa's future after surviving an attempt on her life at approximately 7 months gestation, she has not only survived but thrived. With a master's degree in social work, she has worked in the fields of substance abuse, mental health, domestic violence, and sexual assault counseling and child welfare. Melissa was formerly a college outreach speaker with Feminists for Life and is the former patron of Real Choices Australia. She has testified before the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate and the Australian Parliament. Melissa is on the board of directors for the Vitae Foundation and is founder of the Abortion Survivors Network. Please help me welcome Melissa Ohden to the stage.
Yes, thank you. Arina just whispered twice in 2 weeks. You know, as I was preparing today, I was thinking, so what am I going to actually say, right? You know, I don't know if everybody knows this, but I spoke a couple of weeks ago at this lecture, and Arina had said, you know, we have a handful of people typically in the audience, and then a couple thousand people usually tune in online, right? What are we at, like 100,000 views? But who's counting, right? I'm sure you're not, Arina. I know you're not. I get the updates from Arina, 40,000, 70,000, 80,000. But what I love about that is that I truly believe that's representative of what we're feeling and we're seeing right now, right? You know, there is this great energy. There is this excitement. There is this momentum. And yes, we know that part of that is because of the new administration. But I also believe that that is truly because of the efforts of pro-life organizations and individuals over the last 44 years who have made this momentum and what we have going on right now possible. So I just want to first of all thank each and every one of you who have been engaging in this battle for life for the last 4+ decades, who have made this possible. For anybody who doesn't know, they can find a little bit about me and the Abortion Survivors Network online. I wanted to be sure to put those handles up there because, as you heard in my introduction, I am the founder of the Abortion Survivors Network. And when I shared a couple of weeks ago here at FRC, the number that I was able to give, I think, was 210 survivors that I've had contact with through the Abortion Survivors Network. But just in the last few weeks since my book was published, I have now had 4 other survivors whose stories have come forward to me. And so as I think about our role in the pro-life movement and using media, and we were just talking about this in the audience, what keeps coming back to me as I hear the stories even today is moving outside of our comfort zone. You know, I am very clear with people. This is not what I planned on doing with my life. This is not what I initially did with my life. I have a master's degree in social work. As you heard in my introduction, I have a pretty lengthy history working in different areas within social work. That's what I planned on doing with my life. And God called me out of my comfort zone to live a life in the public eye so that I could advocate for lives like mine to be spared, to be respected, for lives like my biological mother and my biological father, so those men and women could have radically different experiences than what my biological parents experienced in their lives. And so, you know, I guess that's one of my biggest challenges for all of you today that are tuning in and that are here is go outside of your comfort zone. You know what? Maybe you are being called to do something and you're thinking, no, not me. Trust me, I've been there. I said that over the years. You want me to what? You want me to share my story about surviving an abortion with the world? Oh, no, I can't do that. You want me to testify before Congress? You have the wrong person. I can't do that. You know, the list goes on and on and on. And so I would encourage you to keep moving outside of your comfort zone, because not only does it change the world, but it will also change you. You know, I told some youth last night, I think sometimes people look at me, and certainly the media paints me sometimes as this very big, bold, courageous woman, right, taking on the world. I'm really not. I hate to tell you, but I'm not this big, bold, courageous woman. You know what? I am strengthened by Christ. Truly, that is where the boldness comes from. It is not me. And so if you feel like you are called out of your comfort zone and you can't do it, you know, please just trust that Christ will give you the strength you need on that journey. I want to talk a little bit. I mean, I think we all are in the same spot right now, right? I want to talk about that momentum we're feeling, because I think all of us are articulating this today a lot, right? There's something so exciting happening, and it's not just about the March for Life today, right? We've been feeling this building and building and building. And for me in particular, it started about 1.5 years ago when the Center for Medical Progress videos came out. And I think for me, that was one of the first times I saw people who maybe weren't regularly engaged in pro-life work starting to really get involved. They started to take notice, right? People were watching the videos, they were sharing the videos, and that's when I saw people wanted to be a part of this. And that's also, of course, when we started talking about defunding Planned Parenthood at the national level, and you saw people testifying. And I know, that little clip that you see up there, me with shorter hair. I had an identity crisis at some point, guys. It's okay. I'll admit that. Ladies, been there, done that, right? Something happens, cut off your hair, it grows back. It's okay. But what I noticed in that is that when Gianna and I testified, it was historic. It was to have two survivors testifying together against abortion. But what happened there is something that I honestly didn't see coming. People had this incredibly positive response. I think Brandon touched on this. When we engage very publicly in this, and particularly when we have a life story, right, you get a lot of nasty grams, right? You get your fair share of hate mails, or I call them keyboard courageous comments, because they would not typically come and say that to our faces. And I can joke about that right now, but it's not always easy. I know that. But so typically over the years, of course, I've gotten my fair share of feedback from people. And so I was expecting that, certainly, in those hearings about Planned Parenthood. But do you want to know how many pieces of negative feedback I got? 2. Please don't send them after this. All right? 2 was good. But what I saw then was that is what people were yearning for. They were yearning for the truth. They were yearning for hope. And they were yearning for a way to get involved in this. And so we saw those videos of lots of different people testifying really keep multiplying, share after share, number after number. And then, of course, we're seeing that continue on today. These are just very simple things, I know, but I wanted to just kind of share some pictures along the way. This is a picture of me with a woman named Heidi Crowder, who is in her 20s. She has Down syndrome. She has this incredibly colorful hair because she's a cosmetologist. She's so amazing, and I've never met anybody with as much of a personality as Heidi has. But Heidi and I were in Dublin earlier this year for their Rally for Life in protection of the 8th Amendment there in Ireland. And for anybody who's watching who maybe isn't hugely involved in the pro-life arena, I just wanted to throw out some very, simple ideas. I know people are already doing this, but just a reminder, post about where you are. This isn't just about those of us that are leaders in the movement or who are very, public. If you are just out and about doing pro-life things, share your photos. Talk about where you're at. Take photos, right? I love it when people go, "Oh, can I have a photo with you?" And I always go, of course you can. First of all, because we're humans, right? Let's have some fellowship. Let's take photos together. We're in this together. But also, it's just a great opportunity, right? Take a photo with somebody, tag it, put it on social media. That's such a simple way to share a pro-life message without having to really have an argument or a real big statement, right? Maybe you're not as big and bold in that, but snap a photo and tag who it is, right? That's just a great first place. And always, try to link it with something else that's going on. It can be a very basic place, but take it and apply it to something else. This, I wanted to just include a snippet of this video because I think a lot of people probably haven't seen it yet. And I may have referenced it a couple of weeks ago when I spoke here at FRC. This is a video involving Josiah Presley, who is also an abortion survivor. I had showed a little photo of Josiah last time. I love this video. It's called Listen to the Beat. And I found that it is very useful in reaching out to youth because every drum hit in this video is indicative of a life lost to abortion every single day throughout America. And stories are powerful, as I think about what's catching people's attention and how we use media. And I think the stories so far today, Rebekah Buell and Jaxon Strong and my story, certainly our stories capture people's attention. And I know that's why God blesses us with these stories and gives us the strength to share them, because stories do capture people's attention, and stories are powerful. Our stories humanize what people sometimes just see as rhetoric and argument, politics. For me, I often say, right, the political is personal. The personal is political. And so it personalizes things, and stories are powerful. They touch people in ways that maybe we wouldn't otherwise. And videos and music are a huge, huge part of that. I wanted to just include a couple of things that I posted this year that I thought were indicative of other things we see happening. First of all, of course, this was one of the hearings. Arina testified at this hearing in September of this year about the civil right, the right to life. And, what I then did was link it back and blogged about it. And I know there's lots of people who are doing this, but I just want to encourage people to continue doing that. When something is happening in our world, take it, blog about it, link it back to your personal life. If there's some way that you can relate to something that is going on, take it, use it, share it, pass it along. Live streaming, of course, we know this is the big thing, right? I'll admit I finally just started using Facebook Live. I'm a little bit behind on the times, but thanks to ProLifeCon, right? I'm jumping in there finally. But blogging is follow up, with things that is happening is just huge. So I actually took what Arina had testified to, went and looked at the data, and then shared it on as another article, because I suspected that a lot of people didn't tune in to that hearing taking place, and I wanted that information to get out. So, pass it along whenever you can. And just as I shared, be relevant, pick up on what's happening right now. We were looking at, and you see this a lot of times with Life News and Life Site News, but they'll say, 1 year ago, and then they'll post something. Well, I do the same thing. So looking back, I looked back on things and said, a year ago I testified before Planned Parenthood. So where are we at today? And also, with the election happening this year, I wrote some pieces about how we all need to be doing that every single day, regardless of whether there's an election happening. Go outside of your comfort zone, folks. And this has been my year to go outside of my comfort zone. Just when I think I've moved so far out of it that I must be out of it, then I step even further out. So just in the last few weeks, Women's Day magazine, Good Housekeeping, also the site Babel. Lots of people have been contacting me to do interviews. And, it's incredibly important that we share these stories outside of the pro-life community. I know it's hard to trust sometimes, right? Especially as those of us that have a story. I think there's sometimes this fear of the media. And we were talking about this somewhere last night. And I think we need to remember that even the media is capable of being converted. And there are people within the media who may be on our side more than we think that they are, right? And I think that's so very important to keep in mind. But, also we have to just share our story outside of the pro-life community, go mainstream. And as you're going mainstream, here's my biggest piece of encouragement or challenge for you today. If you're seeing something pro-life in the mainstream media, would you do me a favor and jump in on it? Jump in on a thread, post a positive comment, share some information. I always tell my family, if you're going to read an article about me, don't read the comments, Mom. She knows this, right? And so then my mom will say to me in return, Melissa, as you're looking at that article, don't read the comments. And we know why that is, right? But maybe you can read the comments instead of me. Maybe you can read the comments instead of my family and jump in there, right? If somebody wants to attack or have something negative to say about pro-life efforts, jump in and have something positive to say. That is something that each and every one of us can do to advance the pro-life efforts. And of course, you guys have seen my book all over the place. I keep thinking, are people tired of me yet? Don't answer that question online, folks. I won't read the comments. I can joke about that, but truly, again, it is moving outside of my comfort zone to be this far in the public eye and to publish my story finally and have it told in this manner. And I know it's making an impact. I'm hearing stories of other survivors, of people who are post-abortive, of even people who are pro-choice, who are picking up the book and are reading it. And I don't know what the outcome of that is going to be. That's not my decision to make. But what I have to do is be willing to plant the seed. And I think that's truly what all of our work is about, even using social media, right? We are planting a seed and we have to then let it grow. And as I want to finish, I've been thinking a lot about what's ahead in 2017. And it's funny because I made this before even the Women's March situation came up last week. And here's where I think we're headed. We're going to see pro-life feminism continue to be an important part of conversations, particularly when it comes to, of course, women's health care. And I'm so grateful that Brandi was here today to talk about Stanton. We have to be able to talk about it, share the information, talk about women's health care, talk about true feminism, right? I had this very interesting situation happen last week on social media. I posted the op-ed that Carol Crossett and Eric Anthony had posted. I don't know if any of you had read it, essentially saying Susan B. Anthony wouldn't have been marching in the Women's March. And I posted that on my public Facebook page. And lo and behold, somebody made a comment that was pretty typical. It was well, no woman wants to have an abortion. We want the government to stay out, da. And I responded by saying, and I believe that I had the right to live without someone else deciding that I should die. And I went on and said, I'm not trying to be funny, I'm not trying to be rude, but I would like to have a conversation about your perspective and mine. There is clearly a divide that exists between women in our country right now, and I would like to talk to you about how we can bridge that. Do you think that I got a response? Not a one. We, of course, know defunding Planned Parenthood is going to be a big part of that. So, keep your eye on these threads as they're happening. Be willing to go outside of your comfort zone, talk about them, post about it, comment on it, and keep informing people, keep inspiring people. I think restoring hope is a huge thing that is happening for all of us right now. We're living in that hope, but keep restoring it and keep being willing to share your own story. Everybody has a story. Thank you so much.
If you actually want to listen to the full story, and it's an amazing story, just go to www.frc.org/events to hear Melissa Ohden's full story of how she survived an abortion. And she's here to tell us about it, and I'm just so impressed. She has an amazing, amazing witness. And as she said before, we already are at 109,000 views just on Facebook alone from her telling her story 2 weeks ago here at this very place. Next, we have Kelsey Harkness, senior news producer at the Daily Signal, covering education reform and social issues such as abortion, religious liberty, and same-sex marriage. She produces videos in addition to writing news, stories, and in-depth investigative features for the Daily Signal. Her work includes on-camera interviews, information graphics, and documentaries. Harkness is a contributor to The Federalist and is the Wednesday editor of Bright, a daily email newsletter for women by women. First, let's watch Kelsey's video that she and her team produced.
This Saturday, right here where I'm standing, thousands of women will be in Washington, D.C. to participate in the Women's March on Washington, which is meant to send a message to the incoming Republican administration that women's rights are human rights. But recently, the march, which was founded on principles of inclusion and equality for all women, has come under controversy for its decision to exclude and silence the voices of thousands of pro-life women who want to participate.
I think it's horrible. I think if you're a woman, you should be able to march.
Well, I understand why they made the decision, but I don't agree with the decision. We are all sisters. I am absolutely pro-choice. But if they want to be there to voice their disagreement with this new regime, they should be there.
Despite these recent developments, pro-lifers say they still are planning on attending to make it clear that it's possible to be pro-life and pro-women.
Once we first heard about the Women's March and seeing their unity principles at the time, it was very intriguing. We thought, okay, a march for women's rights. You know, we're pro-women, we're pro-life. Easily, these two things go together for us. From day one, they weren't very clear about their stance on whether or not they were specifically pro-choice or pro-abortion. And then as soon as we started seeing our partnership ignored, as soon as we started seeing pro-life groups being rejected and being told that they're not welcome at the march, that was a little shocking to us.
At least one pro-life group applied to be a sponsor, a partner, and was accepted and then ended up being taken off the list. Other groups have applied and not been accepted at all, even when they've applied multiple times. In our case, you know, they may just be rubber stamping and they may realize at some point. So, you know, I'm hopeful that we will be allowed to stay as a partner in March so that we can represent the voices of pro-life women in a march that claims to be about women's rights.
Organizers of the Women's March put out a very progressive platform on the issue of life and abortion. But the reality is, America's views on abortion are a lot more complicated, with only 47% of Americans identifying as pro-choice, and only 19% of Americans believing that abortion should be legal under any circumstance. This really raises the question about whether or not march organizers should not just be including, but actually be seeking out the voices of these pro-life women.
The platform taken by the leaders of this march is representative only of the most radical, fringe, pro-abortion elements. So in order to speak for women and to call itself a women's march, this march must include the voices of pro-life women.
Personally, I see that a lot of the Women's March unity principles really match up with what I believe, especially their principles of nonviolence, inclusivity. It's right when they get to the reproductive rights part of it, they define that a little bit differently than I would.
I think one of the major questions that this march has raised is whether or not you can be pro-life and be a feminist.
I think that's a very interesting question. I know that there are many pro-life women that would rather not be considered feminists, and there are many pro-life women that consider themselves feminists. And I think that really gets at the crux of the entire issue with the Women's March, which is there isn't one group of women that have the claim on the term feminist.
I'm honestly not too surprised that abortion industries like Planned Parenthood have really monopolized the message on this. They've bulldozed over this idea that women's rights is just their thing. Well, it's not just their thing. We're women, there are pro-life women out there who want to have their voices heard, and we believe in full women's rights as well. Again, we just extend that to humans who are younger.
If you could say one thing to the leaders of the Women's March, what would you tell them?
I would say that it's frustrating and insulting that you would claim to be inclusive and for human rights and yet leave out women, of all people, who are defending the rights of humans in the womb.
Hello everyone, thank you for watching that video. My name is Kelsey Harkness. I am a news producer and reporter over at the Daily Signal, the Heritage Foundation. To give you an idea about my typical day, well, that video that we just watched, it was produced a few days before the Women's March, and we produced that in 2 days from start to finish. So some projects involve weeks of work. Some, like this, clearly are very timely. We needed to get ahead of the narrative, and so we had 2 days to produce that. I'm happy in a few minutes to get into some of the more technicalities of my job, how we go about producing these, how we go about promoting them. These videos have been doing very well for us on the Daily Signal. A lot of that is thanks to a lot of people here who graciously share them on their own social media. But I just wanted to start out with some background about myself and how I got involved in the pro-life movement, which, to be honest, was unexpected. If you had asked me when I was in college if this is where I would end up speaking before you today, I probably never would have thought. But I've been in Washington, D.C. for 2.5 years now, and I've learned that after getting involved in the pro-life movement, this movement is very diverse. I grew up in Connecticut, not far outside of New York City, so I'm no stranger to liberal views on abortion and the rhetoric that surrounds them. And when I moved to DC to work for the Daily Signal, I can't say I was super excited to be covering the issue of abortion. It's very controversial. It's hard to talk about over dinner with your friends who might have very strong opinions, different opinions on the issue than you, but this is where I ended up. I went on to cover this movement for the next few years, and what I found out is that the pro-life movement is far more diverse than I had ever known growing up in Connecticut and having lived in New York City for a few years before coming here, let me mention. My journey in the pro-life movement began when I met people like Catherine Davis from the Black Pro-Life Coalition. And Catherine told me about how Planned Parenthood specifically targets Black and Latino communities when picking locations for their buildings. The only difference between Planned Parenthood and Jim Crow, she told me, is that we can't see the targeting because it occurs inside the abortion clinics. But still, wearing my reporter hat, like the good journalist that I hope I am, I was still skeptical. Where's the proof, I thought. Then I heard about this shocking statistic. In 2012, the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene Office of Vital Statistics found that there were more Black babies killed by abortions than there were Black babies born that year. That number was 31,328 abortions versus 24,758 births. Statistics like these, I think, are so powerful and sometimes underused. I had lived in New York City and had never heard this statistic before. Sometimes I think that pro-lifers get caught up in promoting opinions and feelings that we sometimes forget the power of facts. But these facts are so effective. As Anne and Philem, who recently proved in their book Gosnell, The Untold Story of America's Most Prolific Serial Killer, it's already a bestseller. Anne and Philem didn't go around telling people how to feel about these horrors that happened inside that house. They simply told the story of what happened and let people decide for themselves how to feel about it. By communicating the facts instead of opinions, I think they had an opportunity to reach a far more diverse audience who maybe wouldn't be as skeptical about their reporting on the subject. And then there's personal stories. Yesterday, I met a girl named Amy Murphy, a pro-life feminist whose place in politics is a bit hard to define. She's got this bright blue hair. She really can't stand Donald Trump, is actually quite liberal on a few issues. She was one of those pro-life women who attended the Women's March last week despite not feeling welcome, and has a loud message to the mainstream media that it is possible to be pro-life and a feminist. I will say right before I came here, I walked in late, which I apologize for, but that's because I was figuring out how to tell the story of Amy Murphy. At the beginning of the week at the Daily Signal, my editors knew we wanted to cover the March for Life, getting confused with all these marches going on these days. My editors, of course, knew we wanted to cover the March for Life, but the question was how, and how do we do it differently? I reached out to Amy because I thought she didn't necessarily represent some of maybe the stereotypes about pro-life women that I had before moving down in Washington, D.C. and getting to know this movement. I did an interview with her thinking the story was going in one direction, and just this morning I found out we're taking it a completely different direction. And that's the interesting thing about the work that I do. Often your editors will want to know the story way ahead of time. On Monday, they want to know exactly how I'm covering the Women's March, and they want to know how this story is going to be a huge success. Often, I don't always have those answers because sometimes that requires waiting to get to know people, learn their stories, and learn how to communicate them. So right after this, I'm going to be running over to the March for Life and making a similar video here on Amy's story. And I think she is a really interesting character because she definitely breaks down a lot of the stereotypes that people have about pro-life community. So prior to moving to DC and having the opportunity to meet some of these women, I definitely bought into some of the stereotypes about the pro-life movement, but now being here, I see how the world, and particularly the media, has it all wrong. The pro-life movement is diverse. It's built of experts, activists, religious leaders, individuals, and even some reporters like myself. The latter, of course, is my personal expertise, and I guess why you brought me here today to speak with you. As I mentioned at the Daily Signal, I do a combination of written and video reports about a range of subjects, including life. At times, this means digging into the House panel's investigation on infant lives, where I am reading those 400 pages of documents and trying to find the one statistic, the one fact that is going to shock people and communicate what exactly is going on within the abortion industry. At others, it involves documenting through video personal stories about who women are who are involved in this movement, and different views on abortion that often the media really doesn't want to hear. And I would say maybe it's not just that they don't want to hear, maybe it's that they don't even know exists. I'd be happy to get into more details about anything that I do, either on the technical side or my experience being a reporter in DC on this issue, which has been interesting. But I'll leave you with this. Abortion is a controversial subject and something that I think people will always have their own personal opinions on. My interest in reporting on this issue isn't so much to change these opinions, but rather to educate, so that when society goes to form their opinions on this subject, they're equipped with the facts and the personal stories that truly represent what this issue means. I applaud you all here today for the diversity of your movement, and also feel that I owe you all a big thank you for being inclusive enough to include my work, much of which I know is promoted through people like yourselves. On this issue, everyone has a role to play, and I truly believe that by lifting up news outlets like the Daily Signal and others like us, you're reaching a new audience that people, and perhaps people who never before felt the need to listen. These outlets are new and could have never succeeded without your help. So now I would like to open it up to a question and answer session, and I'm happy to go anywhere if anyone has any questions about what I do and how we promote these videos, and any ideas that I might have for you guys to do some of this work yourselves.
Hi, I'm Dr. White for Congress, actually 3rd District, Illinois. I'm Dr. White for Congress. I got the speaker going. I got to speak into this thing, I think. Anyway, what resources can we have and so forth? What are some resources? Where can we find some of those resources on either the actually on the internet or any place that we can actually find some resources? Where can we find those things for actually to find more things about the pro-life, the movement?
As an information, or?
Yeah, as far as information and to look at different perspectives.
I would say, at the Daily Signal, we are constantly looking for those different perspectives, and I think more and more we're seeing more of these conservative news outlets come out of the woodwork and actually become legitimized. Just this week, our Daily Signal White House correspondent asked Sean Spicer a question at a press briefing in front of the AP reporters, and I think it's important that our media sites are getting recognized as legitimate, because it's hard to get the stories out when you're only talking to yourselves. That was part of the purpose of creating the Daily Signal at the Heritage Foundation, because the Heritage Foundation knew they had their core support, and those people agree with them and are willing to back them and promote their work. But at the end of the day, their reach can only go so far, and they begin to only talk to themselves. The idea in hiring reporters like myself, I don't do opinion work for the Daily Signal, is to present some of these issues in a different perspective, so that, again, you're not telling someone how to feel, you're telling them the stories, you're personalizing some of these really sensitive issues that are hard to communicate just through a policy briefing. So I would encourage you, if you want to get more of these perspectives, check out the Daily Signal. There's others like them. And I know a lot of different sites are trying to start using Facebook Live more, and just being more interactive and more personal with their audiences, and share them, because you never know who's going to see your page.
Yeah, hello. You mentioned like facts, statistics, raw data. Do you provide links to some of these numbers where we can get the actual raw data?
Well, so Heritage Foundation has a ton of raw data, but the problem is who's going to go look at that raw data, particularly from the other side. So that's why I tried to incorporate some infographics in here. It seems like when you turn on your TV, if the issue of abortion ever comes up, it seems like an overwhelming majority of the American population has very favorable views on abortion, when that's just wrong. I heard an interesting story just this week with Anne and Philem, who told me that a pro-life group out in Oregon changed their strategy to just simply buy a massive billboard and put on it, I forget exactly how long, but the number of weeks abortion is legal. And what they found out is that people didn't even know the fact of how far along in a pregnancy a woman can get an abortion. And by having that simple fact that you all and we all probably know so well that it's just like, you know, it's second nature to us. We don't think that about it much. But I think given the media landscape surrounding this issue, the facts are not out there, and people on the other side don't understand how far along in a pregnancy a woman can get an abortion. And part of the other problem is that on the issue of abortion, the facts are different in every state, and that's where I would point you to some of the great work at Charlotte Loiser or SBA List, who are wonderful, wonderful resources. But I would encourage you all to just dig through those papers and pull out some facts and do something with them. That's what we're trying to do on the Daily Signal. Personalize them, put them on billboards, just educate people on the reality surrounding this issue. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kelsey. We need fresh faces, fresh videos to represent the pro-life movement, and I think she did a really great job showing how diverse it is, and we'll continue to follow your work at the Daily Signal. Our next speaker is Congressman Jim Banks. Representative Banks began representing Indiana's 3rd District in the U.S. House of Representatives on January 3rd, 2017. As an Indiana State Senator from 2010 to 2016, Banks was a leader on a wide variety of pro-life initiatives that were passed into law and transformed Indiana into one of the most pro-life states in the country. Banks earned his undergraduate degree from Indiana University and his Master's of Business Administration from Grace College. Congressman Banks serves in the U.S. Navy as a Supply Corps officer and took a leave of absence from the Indiana State Senate in 2014 and 2015 to deploy to Afghanistan during Operations Enduring Freedom and Freedom Sentinel. He received the Defense Meritorious Service Medal for his military leadership in Afghanistan. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Congressman Banks.
Thank you. Good morning. It's so great to be here. As a freshman member of Congress, there has been no greater resource, no better friends than Family Research Council for a pro-life, socially conservative new member of Congress like me. So first and foremost, thank you to FRC for the important work that you do, and thanks to your members, your constituents, those who use FRC as your vehicle to stay in touch with the important causes in Washington, as well for the activism that you provide to the cause too. So I am so excited, so optimistic about what lies in front of us over these next couple of years of the 115th Congress, and I'm thrilled to be a part of the March for Life today here in Washington, D.C. As many of you know, in Indiana, we recently endured the 4 years of Governor Mike Pence, who was the most pro-life governor in Indiana history. I'm so proud that he's now the most pro-life vice president in American history, and he's going to speak to us here in a little bit at the March for Life. He's one of the greatest friends to this movement, to the pro-life movement, to the social conservative movement, and we're very proud that Indiana has now provided the rest of this country the opportunity to get to know a man that I've come to admire and respect so much in our Vice President Mike Pence. I just came back this morning from the Republican retreat in Philadelphia with my colleagues on both the House and the Senate side, and I can tell you the next 200 days are going to be an exciting time during this Congress to address many issues, from repealing Obamacare to tax reform, to getting this economy back on track and moving and growing and creating good paying jobs. But I got to tell you, just a few weeks into my time in Congress, nothing has been more rewarding, nothing has been more meaningful to me than having the opportunity at the outset of this week to vote on the No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act, one of the first pieces of legislation during this Congress that we've had the opportunity to vote on. You should be proud of this Republican Congress for doing that. So, and I got to tell you, I've only just begun to get to know our Speaker, Paul Ryan, but I believe he is a truly the most pro-life Speaker of the House that we have ever had, someone who is deeply dedicated to the cause of the right to life and advocating for pro-life and socially conservative principles as well. So with that, I'm just excited to be here. I'm honored to be on the stage at Family Research Council. I'm grateful for your work and for the number of people that look to you. I look to you as a great resource, and I just ask your members to continue to stay in touch with Family Research Council for news, for insight on the issues of the day. Follow their lead. They know what's going on Capitol Hill better than anybody. They can provide you with ideas and issues of what's going on with different bills that are being debated. Look to them for those guiding principles and opportunities to weigh in on important pieces of legislation. Our office looks forward to hearing from you as well about your priorities and your interests, and we look forward to the next couple of years ahead. So thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Congressman Banks, for many years of service to the pro-life initiatives in Indiana, to your service to our country, and we look forward to working with you in this new Congress. Next, we have Bishop Vincent Matthews, Jr. Bishop Matthews is the president of the International Mission Department, the Church of God in Christ. In this leadership position, Bishop Matthews launched the Family Life Campaign. Please help me welcome Bishop Matthews.
First of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to share with you on today about what we're doing in the Church of God in Christ around the world. I'm so grateful for the Family Research Council, who's doing phenomenal work that I've followed over the years. The Church of God in Christ is a denomination in the United States that is the largest African American Pentecostal denomination in the United States. We have 12,000 congregations throughout the United States, 6.5 million members in the USA. We're in 85 nations around the world, and many more thousands of congregations around the world. Our presiding bishop, Bishop Charles Blake, has a passion for lives that are unborn, for lives of individuals. And the truth is, as being the largest African American denomination, it is time for us, and our presiding bishop, Charles Blake, has said, because disproportionately we are affected by abortion as what we see as black genocide against our people. Planned Parenthood clinics, 75% of them are in black and brown communities, building major mega clinics, exterminating lives way more than what the KKK could have ever dreamed of. And it's done with not much being said by anyone, black, white, or indifferent. This travesty history will judge us in a bad way, but most of all, God will judge us for allowing this to happen. And so as a church, we have decided that it's time for us to flex our muscle
and not allow this to happen, not just to black individuals or African Americans, but for everyone, but specifically to our demographic where it's been targeted. And there's a demonic spirit of deception when many people have been taught so many things that are anti or the antithesis of what the Bible teaches, but have not reconciled the two. And so our presiding bishop in our church has aggressively went forward to engage our parishioners and our congregations. And what brings me here is because we've aggressively looked online to make certain that we can get the word out. Because oftentimes there are gatekeepers who do not allow the message to go forth in congregations and pulpits or whatever, but we found that we can circumvent and transcend those gatekeepers by going directly to individuals using the internet medium and mode. God blessed us in that while we had this initiative, no one reached out to us, and we didn't know who to reach out to. We had a what, but we didn't know how. We knew we wanted to save lives, but we didn't know how to do it. And as a church, we said, let's save lives. The Church of God in Christ, let's do it. And there are many organizations that are out there, but no one reached out. But I'm so grateful that the Human Coalition, through Dean Nelson, Reverend Dean Nelson, reached out to us and said, let's partner together. Now, the Human Coalition, which used to be Online for Life, is basically they are geared towards online reaching abortion-determined mothers to give them options. And so as a denomination, by the way, we recognize that we could not just preach and tell people that you should not have an abortion, because for many people, they're in desperate situations. And so we're encouraging our churches to link with pregnancy centers across the country. We're encouraging our pastors to preach and teach others what the Bible teaches to become the shippers and the pullers. But we're also asking our people to volunteer at pregnancy centers, but ultimately our parishioners are signing up to adopt children of abortion-determined women, who letting them know, you may not have options, but here's an option. Don't abort your child. Give your child to us, and we'll take your child in our home. As the missions director of our denomination over these 85 countries, we have made it a mission. We've had foreign missions all over the world, but our mission is here in the United States. And so linking with Human Coalition has empowered our church to be able to, A, identify the pregnancy centers, B, be a safe place for women who are in trouble to call to the Human Coalition and to be able to be linked. And they're partnering with us to work with the pregnancy centers and help mothers, as well as provide a network for us to be able to link our families to adopt children. I'm excited because while a pastor may be hesitant or afraid to preach to his congregation, we're able to go through that using the internet. And so the Family Life Campaign, which is started in our church, is literally rescuing children. This partnership with the Human Coalition, I believe, is something that has never happened in the history of our denomination, but it's exciting. And the wonderful thing is that youth and young adults are rising up and being a part of it. Not only do we have the online resources that the Human Coalition have provided for us as a tool, but something as simple as Facebook Live and having a Monday chat that I host every Monday, sharing theology, not just, and I say just, but not only on life issues, but family issues, theological issues. What gets us in these situations have been well received. And so while I can preach to a congregation of 1,000 people and be excited, I can sit on my living room couch and hold my phone at selfie level and talk to 20,000 just like that, and go and eat dinner with my wife. But having reached so many people. And so it's so important to, what would the Apostle Paul have done? The Apostle Paul, who was exterminating Christians at a rapid rate, who then flipped and became one of the individuals to save life, who recognized that life is important, that Christ came to give us life and that more abundantly. He wrote letters that were mass distributed. If there had been internet there at the time, I would imagine that the Apostle Paul would have pulled out his phone, whether Android or Apple, and he would have done the exact same thing. It has worked for us as a denomination. Our presiding bishop does the exact same thing. Another thing that we're able to do with the Human Coalition is to engage our people in intercessory prayer, to pray. And once you cannot hate somebody that you pray for. You cannot disregard with blatant, just oversight if you don't pray, if you're praying for them. And so we're engaged on the prayer app that we're asking all of our parishioners to be a part of. Well, what happens with the prayer app? It's so exciting because, first of all, with them, when a woman goes and Google's looking for an abortion center, they come up top on the search engines. And then when they call, they try to link them with a pregnancy center. As soon as a woman calls their center, we get a notification that a woman in Cleveland or Detroit or Chicago or LA or New York, it's called the clinic. We don't know her name. She's anonymous, but they ask, will you pray for her? And we click and say, we'll pray for her, and we follow that process. Will she go to a pregnancy center? After she's gone to a pregnancy center, is that baby's life saved? And you see people who previously were basically apathetic about life issues, excited, more excited than fantasy football, because they said, yes, I saved a life through prayer. That's an exciting thing. And that's something exciting to be a part of and to recognize that. And so they're part of that and able to be a part of the prayer team, but more so that knowledge, because now we're increasing even the understanding of life issues and understanding those things. If we can continue on the slides, you'll see that then also on our website, Family Life Campaign, it has some videos of women who have chosen life, who've chosen to keep their children, some who've had difficulties with abortion, and many have connected. We've actually showed some of these videos in our national conventions. And these videos have created an environment, a safe environment to discuss things that were previously, in my cultural context, taboo to discuss. Many issues that deal with, because there's this strict code of conduct, and now how dare you get pregnant? And so we just kind of push off this side, recognizes then what do you do after you've gotten to that point? And how do we love you? And what happens with the child? And it's exciting to see the ties changing as we move forward in this partnership. And so we encourage men and women to watch these videos that are on our website, familylifecampaign.org. And then as we continue here, you see some of the resources. You see Dean Nelson there to the right. I'm still trying to figure out if the man is if he's a man or an angel, that guy to the right, because as I said before, one of the challenges is I hate the term black church or white church because it really is oxymoronic to what church really is. When people say the black church or the white church, it really means that there really is no church, because there's no difference between us, because we are joined together by the blood of Christ, and our DNA becomes the same when we're born again. And so I hate that term, but I understand that it must be used for people to understand. And so as a black denomination, I say with no other way to say it, a historically black denomination, many people have resigned to the fact that black churches do not want to be a part of life events. However, this man of God contacted us after sharing with our presiding bishop a forum with thousands of pastors seeking to strategize on what to do. And we're fumbling, trying to figure out what to do, and the Human Coalition reached out. And then Sean Martin, who's the National Church Outreach Director, who has adopted many children and fostered many children, who works with Dean, and it's just phenomenal to work with him. And I'm remiss to say Brian Fisher also, who's the director and the CEO who heads this. And then there's that funny-looking guy on the left. I don't know who he is. But but the bottom line is that we're able to leverage whatever tool that's available to us to save a life. Now, I ask you, how much is a life worth? How much is one life worth? Maybe I should put a gun to your head and ask you, how much is your life worth? And I think we would say, pay whatever it takes to get I don't have a gun, by the way. Just want to make that clear. But I think we would say whatever it takes to save that life is worth it. The Church of God in Christ, our presiding bishop, and our church is aggressively seeking to save lives. We first said, let's reduce the number of abortions, and then we found and noticed and recognized that's not biblical. To seek to reduce the number of abortions means that we will accept a number of deaths and exterminations. To seek to just simply reduce abortion really means that we say that there's an acceptable level of people who should be killed. And so we recognize that reducing abortion is not an option, that we must make it unthinkable and unacceptable in our society. And I believe that there's a generation that's rising up that God is using to change those ties, that really see beyond what we've been taught and what we have seen. There's a spirit of rebellion in our nation. There's a spirit of rebellion, not just in the inner cities, all over our nation. And that spirit of rebellion, I believe, subconsciously is reacting to misinformation and false information. And they're recognizing that we've been lied to, that something's amiss. And I believe that it's the church that must rise. It's not the government, it's not the police, it's not any of these individuals. It's the church, God's church, the church of Jesus Christ, through the power of the Holy Spirit, that will literally give these young men and young women who are frustrated and upset about what's going on in our society, to show them what the real fight is and that the revolution is going on. And they can be a part of a real revolution to save lives. And I believe that God is going to give us victory. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with you on today.
Thank you so much, Bishop Matthews, for your wise words, for your faithful work to serving in the pro-life community, especially in the African-American community. Now, we welcome the beautiful and smart Catherine Seltner, the new host of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, a half-hour show program that informs viewers about current issues of importance advancing a culture of life. Previously, Catherine served as a reporter and producer for EWTN News Nightly. As a founding news team member, Catherine has covered St. John Paul II's canonization in Rome and the 2016 Republican and Democratic conventions. Her pro-life work includes reporting on undercover Planned Parenthood videos, the Select Investigative Panel hearing on Capitol Hill, and the Whole Woman's Health versus Hellerstedt. Please help me welcome my good friend, Catherine.
Every week from Washington, D.C., Catherine Zeltner and leading pro-life experts shine the light of truth on abortion, euthanasia, assisted suicide, and the culture of death.
And what has been missing, and I think this show will really solve, is a way to close the gap between the White House and Capitol Hill.
A new show that's not just a source for pro-life news.
I think that we found that there is a for-profit industry in baby body parts in this country. That's the bottom line.
But a call to action to everyone in the pro-life movement.
And unfortunately, after 8 horrific years of Obama pushing abortion in every aspect of federal programming, we need to redouble our efforts to protect life.
EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, a co-production of EWTN and Susan B. Anthony List. Not just a show, a call to action. Premiering Thursday, January 26th at 5 p.m. Eastern.
I just want to say thank you, Arina and Family Research Council, for inviting me here today to ProLifeCon. I am so happy to be here on a day that really is filled with great optimism and hope. I think this is a reoccurring theme that we're feeling today. This is without a doubt an exciting time to be pro-life. Thank you all for just watching that promo. I want to share a little bit more about me and what I do. I am a TV host for EWTN, the Global Catholic Network. For those of you who are not familiar, EWTN is the largest religious media network in the world, broadcasting in more than 145 countries. And I have the great honor of hosting a program that launched just last night, actually, called EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, 30-minute program dedicated to informing our viewers on the latest when it comes to abortion and assisted suicide legislation. Our vision really is to bridge the gap between what's going on here in Washington, D.C. and in Capitol Hill to our viewers at home. And with so much going on at the federal level and at the state level, our hope is pro-lifers will tune in to be informed and know what they can do about it. This week alone has been a busy one. We also hope to build up the culture of life and spotlight groups and individuals who are doing just that. We just had Melissa Ohden on, actually, on the premiere last night, a powerful interview that I was grateful to share with our viewers. Our viewers, for the most part, are already motivated in being pro-life. The Catholic Church is one of the most vocal and active defenders of life. But we are teaming up with the Susan B. Anthony list to give our viewers the easy means to be involved in the pro-life movement, to become active. One way we plan to do that is to give a call to action each week, a simple action the viewer can take to be engaged. For example, our first call to action, we asked our viewers to sign the Susan B. Anthony list's Defund Planned Parenthood petition at sba-list.org/defundpp to send a signal to our lawmakers that we want Planned Parenthood defunded. This was, after all, one of the promises that Trump made to us, and we will hold him accountable to it now that he is president. Today, the March for Life is a beautiful demonstration of pro-lifers in action. But you see, we can be in action every single day, 365 days out of the year. And we want to show our viewers how they can do that, whether that's signing a petition or calling a congressman, for example. Another goal we have is to equip our viewers with information so that they can better dialogue with their neighbor. There have been decades and decades of abortion propaganda pushed forward in our culture. And with that, many common myths perpetuated that are flat-out lies. Just this week, Live Action debunked one of those lies, that Planned Parenthood provides prenatal health care. They don't. But the list of myths is a long one, and there are deeply rooted misconceptions many women and men in this country have that need to be untangled. These are misconceptions that can't be changed with a simple slogan or a flashy campaign. These are lies that we must take the time to educate others about. But to do that, we must take the time to educate ourselves. Another feature of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly will be a discussion with a panel of pro-life experts, so we can really delve into these confusing questions. What will defunding Planned Parenthood really mean for women's health? Is it anti-woman to be against abortion and a woman's choice? These are common questions we face, and we need to be able to answer them, and answer them with conviction and clarity. We need to talk with our neighbor and engage culture, because it is culture that influences policy after all. I'm often under the impression that many pro-lifers are strongly convicted in their views, but maybe they don't know how to talk about it and talk about those views. There may be this fear of engaging in conversation because what if you don't know all the answers? Do not have fear. We have truth on our side. We have truth, and that means we have peace. You'll see that peace reflected out there in the streets today at the March for Life, the largest peaceful protest. It's a peace we should maintain in our conversations with others, including in the online spheres. I know it can get easily hostile, especially this topic online. When you're talking to a screen and not a human face, it becomes easier to dehumanize someone. But that's not being very pro-life, and abortion is probably one of the most divisive topics out there. It's not comfortable to talk about, but it's also the most important. So let's speak truth in love and in charity to others. I recently posted on my personal Facebook about my new role at EWTN as host of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, and I was truly overwhelmed with messages from people. Some I had heard from recently, and others I hadn't heard from in years. And I was hearing from people who hold very opposite opinions when it comes to the life issue. But I was really able to have some productive discussions, I think, and hope, because there was this foundation of respect. If you can, I encourage you to have some of these more difficult, hard discussions, maybe via private messages, away from the eyes of everyone else. Yes, there are times for public debate, but I think true conversions come from personal encounters, not angry comment threads. Those are often not very productive. When posting pro-life related content online, post it in a way that invites dialogue, not in a way that's hostile. I was a communications major, advertising to be exact, so I studied a lot on message strategy. Communication is two-way. Yes, it is about how you present something, but it's also about how your audience hears it. Communication is only successful if your message is received correctly. And we do want to be aware as to how we're communicating. Yes, having a platform on the largest religious media network in the world is influential, but what's most influential is that one-on-one encounter. It's that one-on-one dialogue. As you engage in discussion, be prepared to answer this question. Why are you pro-life? This isn't a question that can be answered with a common phrase. This is a question that demands serious personal reflection. Why are you pro-life? What has convinced you that life begins at conception, that a preborn person is the most vulnerable person, and it is our responsibility to protect their human right to life? What has convinced you to come to Washington, D.C. and face the inevitably cold weather and march to the Supreme Court? For me, it's a few reasons. I have seen up close in my own family women say yes to life in very difficult circumstances. I've seen those women say yes and struggle. Yeah, it's hard. But I've seen those women flourish. Not just survive and do it, but flourish. And another reason I'm pro-life, because as a woman, I reject the idea that killing a child, to taking violent action against a woman's own body, is ever a solution. To be pro-woman is to say, you can do this. I believe in you. I reject the lie that a woman cannot. That is demeaning. I encourage everyone to take more time for personal reflection, for serious thought, so that when you speak with someone from the, quote, other side, your answer is profound. Because it's those profound answers that move hearts, those profound answers that maybe bring someone to a pause and take some time for their own personal reflection. This year's March for Life theme is the power of one, the power one person can do to change the course of the future. Don't forget the power that you, one person, can have in impacting another person's life. Keep that in mind when dialoguing about the pro-life issue. You can change minds and hearts. Another thought when it comes to being pro-life online, be genuine. Show the messy side of life, not the TMI stuff, not the deepest parts of your soul stuff. Save that for your closest family and friends. But don't be afraid to show that your life is not perfect. I follow Catholic speaker Leah Darrow on Snapchat. You may be familiar with her. She was a former contestant on America's Next Top Model. Now she spends time giving talks on modesty. Anyways, I love to follow her on Snapchat because she shows real life. She shows her kids running around the house, the dishes piled up in the sink, maybe a glass of wine before she goes to bed. Because life is hard. And I think in being pro-life, we need to break the myth that life has to be perfect and orderly in order for you to welcome children into this world. No. Newsflash. Life was, is, and never will be perfect. So what can pro-lifers do online to advance the pro-life movement? My thoughts summarized are these. Tune in to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly, shameless plug, each week and follow our call to action. Invite dialogue on your personal social media. And finally, show your authentic, beautiful, messy life to others. God bless you, and may this be a fruitful year for the pro-life movement.
Thank you, Catherine, for putting the plight of preborn and vulnerable people right in the spotlight, in the international spotlight. If you're just tuning in, we already have over 30,000 views right now, and please keep on sharing with your friends and family. And now we want to welcome Thomas Jacobson, the Executive Director of the Global Life Campaign, who just this week delivered a compelling lecture right here at FRC, launching the Abortion Worldwide Report. He is a graduate of Regent University, George Fox College, and Lutheran Bible Institute. From 2001 to 2010, he served as representative to the United States for Focus on the Family, meeting with ambassadors, diplomats, and officials from 110 nations. Thank you so much, and welcome to the stage.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you at this ProLifeCon and on the day of March, the March for Life here. So I'm going to just give you a very brief overview of what we covered 2 days ago here at FRC. What Arina just mentioned was the Abortion Worldwide Report. It's something that has been in the works for, well, actually decades, and we've released certain parts of it already on the globallifecampaign.com website. And also the full PowerPoint presentation is available on the same website and also on Facebook /Global Life Campaign. Okay, so I'm just going to run through a few of the slides here now. This is a 1919 world map, okay? So we tracked what the abortion policies were during the 1800s and up through 1919. There were, every nation that had a policy at that time regarding life or abortion prohibited abortion, okay? So every single country prohibited abortion. There was a life-protecting consensus worldwide at that time. Then that all began to change in 1920 when the USSR was the first nation in the world in history to authorize abortion on demand. And then if you just look at this graph, it's somewhat depictive of how abortions occurred over the last 95 years, okay? So with the USSR, abortions increased rapidly in a couple of their republics, but then they restricted it in 1936, and abortions dropped way down. And then during World War II, very, very low. Then in the 50s, they started increasing. The USSR once again authorized abortion on demand in 1955, and they just skyrocketed, as you can see from the graph there. So the policies of nations have extraordinary impacts on countries and deadly impacts upon children and women. Okay, now this is a 2016 map of the national policies of countries. It tracks the national policies of 196 countries. Okay, the blue color is where abortion is prohibited except to save the life of the mother. The green color is where it is restricted, often highly restricted in those countries. So you see the concentrations in the Americas, Central and South America, in Africa, and in a little bit of Asia there. And then also what's not visible on the map is Oceania, or the island countries. 10 out of 14 of the island countries in the Pacific prohibit abortion. Okay, this is a graph of the abortions from 1921 through 2015. Okay, and it's color-coded so that the yellow color at the top represents China. China has aborted 383 million of their children. The orange color on the left is the USSR up to 1991 to its collapse. Okay, and then the blue and the light blue going down from that are Russia and the former Soviet republics, stretching out from there. The majority of abortions that have been done over this last century have been in communist countries. The U.S. is the dark blue part at the bottom of the graph there. Okay, the U.S. is actually number 3. One other thing that I want to mention here. So 73% of all the abortions we've tabulated are communist countries. The second group, though, is Christian countries. There's 62 countries where abortion is partially or fully authorized in Christian countries, and then 14% from other faiths, including Jewish and Islam and Buddhist and Hindu. Okay? All right, this is a comparison of total abortions over the last 95 years to all the wars and democides that have taken place in approximately the same period of time. Abortions at over 1 billion that we've tabulated systematically are 4 times as high as all the democides. The democides are death by governments, okay? So it's just, just the number of abortions in the U.S. are approximately the same as all the deaths during World War II. Okay, here's your top 10 countries on the left as far as total abortions, and then the top 10 as far as the percent that they have exterminated of their own populations on the right. Again, these will be available on the website. Okay, this is a U.S. graph, okay? Quick rundown. 1954, first state authorized abortion, Alabama for strict reasons, then 66 to 70 and 72, another 19 countries. So by the time you get to Roe v. Wade in 1973, you already have 20 states that have authorized partially or fully. And then with Roe v. Wade, you just see the explosion of abortions in the U.S. So a total of approximately 58 million in the U.S. Okay, this is another example I want to show you real quick. It's Poland. Poland highly restricted abortion in 1990 and 93, and abortions dropped to almost just very, very low. Okay, so policies have impacts. Okay, this is how you can reach us. You can go to globallifecampaign.com. You can go to Global Life Campaign or Facebook /Global Life Campaign. Also www.johnstonsarchive.net. That's the co-author of the report, and he's got tons of information there. And then info@globallifecampaign.com is where you can reach us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thomas Jacobson and Dr. Johnston, for your painstaking and sobering report. You can also get the fuller version of this lecture at www.frc.org/events. And it's sad that 1 billion babies are not here with us today because of abortion worldwide in the last century. There should have been 8.5 billion people alive today. But we are going to continue to work to make abortion unthinkable. Lastly, we have Anna Hoduski. She is running across the United States for the pro-life movement. As an activist on behalf of the preborn, she speaks at various events to both educate and activate others to get involved in their local movements. Anna, are you available? First, we're going to watch a video.
The life of the unborn child. I didn't understand how bad it was or what procedures actually happened, because a lot of times behind closed doors you don't know what's going on, and you choose not to know because you know it's dark and you know it's wrong, and so you step away. And I feel like that's what a lot of America has done, and so to bring that equality to the unborn is essential.
In 2012, when we had over 75,000 people in attendance at a packed-out Florida State football game, we had over 76,000 pregnancies that ended in termination as an abortion here just in the state of Florida. We have more abortions performed here in the United States than people who die of cancer and heart disease.
I would say I was pro-life, but I didn't know how to make my passion and my care for the child actually become real. And I was reading about how life begins at conception, and that there's a single cell, and that is a human being at its first cell.
That one cell is unique from mom, it's unique from dad, it's unique from the other 6 billion people on the planet.
But for some reason, that seemed easier to kill in my mind than the partial birth abortion. One day I prayed, I was like, God, would you show me how you see the unborn? What is your heart towards this child? And God changed that and gave me not only a passion and a love for the unborn, but also a love and a passion to want to stand for them. One day I was running and I was training for a half marathon, and as I was training I was praying, and I asked God, what would you have me do with my life? I want to live a life that honors you and that stands for justice and that will fight for justice and that will defend the weak. God told me clear as day, run across the US for the pro-life movement. I didn't know how it was going to work, I didn't know the details, I didn't know where the funds would come from, but I just knew clear as day, like that was what God had for that whole next year after my graduation from college. That was what God was going to have me do.
She'll be meeting at churches, she'll be meeting at schools, she'll be meeting with elected representatives. She's doing this to raise awareness and to provide education on the subject of abortion. I just have the utmost respect for what she is doing, the dedication that she has, the organization that she's had with this project, and she will do it, and she will change lives.
There's definitely hope. We have to stand up as a nation, as our world, and stand up and say, we aren't pro-choice.
Then when we
Unfortunately, we couldn't really hear much of what Anna was saying, but please visit her website and Project If Life for the amazing fact that she's running across the U.S. for life and sharing it with so many people. And so keep running strong, Anna, until you finish, and we're thankful for your sacrifice and example. Hasn't it been an amazing morning so far? Inspirational people. I just wanted to thank you all for joining and for sharing your talents, groundbreaking work, courage, dedication, and protecting the smallest and weakest. We are so grateful to our online viewers and audience members for joining us this morning. As part of the thriving digital pro-life community, we will continue to fight for life by engaging and educating others with every online tool we have at our disposal. Together, we will make abortion unthinkable. We will see you here next year at ProLifeCon's Digital Action Summit. Now let's go and march.